This show is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. You are your greatest asset. It's time you start investing in that. Visit betterhelp.com/kindafunny and take care of you.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to PSI Love You XOXO episode 78. I'm one of your hosts, Greg Miller, alongside the game playing, roller skating Janet Garcia. Hello, Janet.
What's up?
Not much. What's up with you?
Not a lot. Finally finishing some games. About to continue more. I'm excited.
What'd you finish?
I finished Where the Heart Leads, and I finished It Takes Two. It finally took two, and now it's done. And then what else did I finish? That's kind of it. Oh, and I platinumed Chicory as well.
Oh, congratulations on the platinum. Yes.
Thank
I know
you.
you were working on that. And a great review last week, obviously, with Blessing after I had to run away or whatever. But here's the thing. Where the Heart Leads. Let's start right at the top, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Of course, I put out a tweet today, Janet. It said this: I have so much to say about Where the Heart Leads that I'm vibrating, waiting for PSI Love You XOXO with Janet. Even then, I'm gonna need a spoiler-filled place to talk about this narrative adventure. It drops tomorrow on PlayStation. If you pick it up, hit me up. And then you quote tweeted and said, I also have thoughts to share. ... Should be an interesting convo. And use the Miley Cyrus like cagey gift that you don't agree. Here's the thing about Where the Heart Leads, ladies and gentlemen. Narrative adventure game out tomorrow. We're doing what you've been playing right at the top of the show, Barrett. Moving around. You got it, Barrett? You understand, Barrett?
Got it.
Thanks, Barrett. So yeah, at the very top of it, we're going right into what you've been playing. We've been playing Where the Heart Leads. I'll give you the pitch because I think they do a good job in their press releases about it. When husband and father Whit Anderson descends into a sinkhole to save the family dog, he unwittingly tumbles into a journey through time. Suddenly enveloped by visions of his past, present, and future, Whit discovers he can change them, altering the course of his life forever. Boasting thousands of choices and dozens of endings across a twisting, uplifting, gut-wrenching story, Where the Heart Leads features a 600,000-word script rivaling 5 novels or the biggest AAA RPGs. Step into Whit's life from his childhood and teenage years to fumbling around as a young adult and reflecting on his works as an old man. It goes on. It talks about, obviously, this. It's a narrative adventure, right? So the idea here, Janet, is that we play as Whit, and basically every so often as you talk to different characters and learn their stories and pick up, in our environments, objects in the environment, you get more about what's happening in town, and then eventually you are led to many, well, do you want to do this or that? Do you want to side with this person, that person? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that kind of thing? And my PlayStation says I've played it for 5 hours on my little thing there. That feels like underselling it because this game is too long. It goes on for too long. It drags in certain places or whatever. And I had the weirdest relationship with this game, Janet, where it is, on paper, a Greg Miller-ass game. Narrative adventure, let's get in here. It's a weird, timey-wimey thing. What's going on? Different choices, yada, yada, yada. And there's parts where I was super in, parts where I was super cold. At one point when I was describing it to somebody, I described it as the old Seinfeld thing where Elaine had her free sandwich card. And she's like, do you know how many bad sandwiches I had to eat to get this card? Because I'm not I can't wait to play more of this, but I'd come so far. I'm like, I have to finish it. And then
you're partway through then, right? You're not done, right? Oh, you finished it.
I'm done now. I'm done. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So finishing it last night was, fuck, do I want to play this game again? And it's like this weird tumultuous relationship I have with it. Where are you with it? Oh,
so you beat it in 5 hours?
That's what it says on PlayStation. I doubt it, though. That doesn't seem possible.
I played 11 hours of this game. I lived in this game. And I reviewed this game. You can check it out on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/GameOnysis. It's also on my blog site, which is gamefortheculture.wordpress.com. Yes, I have not paid for the URL. Don't at me. I'm going to redesign it. But I lived. I'm 72%. I also kind of feel that, right? Like I'm 72% in with the trophies. And I'm like, I don't like this game. I don't, flat out, I don't like the game. I'm not going to platinum it. But then I'm like, well, only a couple of bronze,
I've come so far from it, right? Yeah. I think I'm right there too. I have 73% of the trophies. I'm right there. And as I look at the thing, I'm like, I could knock this out in one session and probably just a couple saves if I wanted to.
Like, just why not? This is an interesting game because it falls into, if, from a critical standpoint, I would say it's okay. Like, I don't think it's good, but I don't think it's bad. And I think that's worth noting. However, there are okay games that I still recommend. I'm like, okay, especially story stuff. I love story stuff. So like I remember the last review I did was What Comes After, this like visual novel style game, and that also got the same score. I gave it a 2 out of 5, and I'm like, look, it's got a lot of problems, it's got a lot of things that fall short, but it's actually pretty good, and that one I do low key recommend. This one not quite as much, though. I can see people liking it. I'm just not that person. It does drag out a lot. I think the writing though, the dialogue is good. Like
yeah.
There's a lot like there, and I really like the themes it explores, which it's going to like family relationships and capitalism and art, and I like how the decisions are not like clearly this is the good decision, this is the evil decision. They felt genuinely interesting, and by the end, like the last, I wrote in my review, the last third of the game, I think is like if that was the whole game, that would probably be a really good game, because the last third, I think it finally nails the pacing. We're jumping between times, we're seeing a lot of people. And it finally has that intrigue to it. But yeah, I think my number one beef with it is it just kind of drags on, and it's a lot of text. And I know it's a narrative game. Not shy about reading in narrative games. I love narrative games, but there's so much text for everything. And I'm like, y'all need to cut this down, because it takes so long for things to really get moving and for you to really see what the game has to offer that, admittedly, if I was not reviewing this, I don't think I would have finished it, because and then the music is so it's like a meditation app. I was like at the end of my days, like playing it, just forcing myself to like slog through it. But there are good things there. So yeah, so it's a little complicated.
Yeah, I can't, and this I guess is a good thing, right? I always talked about it, when we review games here, kind of funny, or even when I think back to IGN, right? The worst game to review ever is when you don't have strong opinions about a game, when you don't love it or hate it. And even though that sounds like what we're saying here, I feel like it's such a weird relationship with the game that that's what I was talking about, wanting to talk about it. Now that you've beaten, I'm super interested. Post show today will be a spoiler cast for this, because it was just a little thing of, I want to know what your endings were. I want to know where it shut down. I want to know what you think actually happens in this game. Because that was the other thing too, is I think it is, if they were to tell, it's a narrative adventure, we make these choices and it plays out and you replay it and you go through this guy's life, you'd be like, all right, cool. But this setup is so fucking weird and obtuse. And
yeah,
I get it, because I finished it, and the first thing I want to do is talk about it and see what you interpreted the ending to be and what you interpreted it all to be. But that was a really hard thing to get on with. If you listen to Gamescast this week, right, I talk a bit about my first like hour and a half with it, and I was like, it's got a really weird intro, but then you start playing it and I get it. But when I'm playing it, I don't like that when I come out of, you're doing these like flashbacks and eventually like flash forwards kind of thing. Like when we come back to center, Whit never is like, man, I don't remember it like that, or man, I changed that, or man, like it's you wouldn't know you're changing his past or whatever if you weren't reading the press release.
Exactly. And then it was again, the game is very long. Poured 11 hours to it. I played it all during this week. Like it was a lot. And part of me, when I got to the end, without spoilers, we can do that later, I was like, maybe it's me. Maybe I skimmed over something, like maybe I missed like a key one line, but no, I don't, I'm especially talking to you. I feel like vindicated that, okay, this was supposed to be sort of like a bit of a mystery. One of my big beefs with the game is like, it invokes a mysticism that it doesn't really follow through with, because even though the whole thing is like not realistic in the sense that, hey, these people are like ghost figure looking things. Like that's obviously not based in reality, or like you can jump through time. Like that's also not based in reality, but it starts off so fantastical and kind of hinting at, oh, this is going to be wild, but it's very mundane. And then at the end, it starts to get like kind of wild again. And it's like, all right, well, what exactly are we doing here? And why is he not really commenting on it? And suspicion disbelief, exactly. Like I'm all here for that, but it's a little bit odd for all these things to be happening, and he's just like, it's another Tuesday at the lumberyard. I'm like, what's going on?
And I think, again, that's the setup of like, just like, I went back last night as soon as I beat it, and the first thing I did was restart it, not to actually play last night, but just to see, okay, like where we just ended his story, I need to see again where we started it, because even starting it, like this huge sinkhole starts, and you jump down it in a bathtub, and it's like already kind of Alice in Wonderlandy as I talk about it. So it's like playing that, I was like, this is jarring. What is this their reality? And then going through it, and the way that you make a lot of art in the game with your brother, and I guess these are choices. You could probably go become an accountant if you didn't want to do this, but I made a lot of art with my brother, right?
Hell
and
yeah.
The pieces you make are fantastical and huge, and you make them in a day, and it doesn't make any sense. And it's like, by the end of the game, I get it. I understand the world you're creating. those first opening hours, I'm like, what is this a dream world? Like, I don't and like, and to your point, why isn't he commenting on any of this stuff? Why isn't he talking about like, oh, I don't remember it this way or something to that effect?
I think too, like the assumption, like with the way they set it up, like, and again, this kind of leads into the sort of pacing issues with expectations just going into this. And the only thing I knew was that it was going to be sort of more than 5 hours because the PlayStation blog was like, we went for 5 hours and we basically doubled it. I was like, cool, it's probably going to be more than 5 hours. But like playing through it, I kept having this expectation of, it starts off like you fall into the sinkhole and you're trying to reunite with your family and you're aging throughout the story. So I'm like, okay, by the time the age that I was when I fell, I'll like be back. Yep. But then I wasn't, and I was like, I think, and I was, playing in my living room just a few hours every day, and I'm like, I think that, and I got to that point where I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to like really zone in and try to get this done because I want to, have this whole content plan, and I was like, I think there's a lot more of this game left, and there were like 2 or 3 hours, like it just sort of, it's not that I need to know where it's going, but it's not really clear what you're exploring, I think is my issue. Because I love magical realism stories. One of my favorite games ever is What Remains of Edith Finch. Not that this is trying to be that, but in that game, there's also a lot of mystery, but you're grounded in knowing the core thing that you're doing, and you kind of just are along for like the ride of the mysticism of it. And the mysticism is very clearly an imagination from when you write down these stories, you're sort of living the stories right down in that game. Here, it doesn't really have, I think, those important anchors to ground and enjoy, and also get weirder with the mysticism too. Again, it was very mundane for like a large part of the game. So yeah, I'll be honest, I was a little bit disappointed in it because I love narrative games. So I was just hoping that this would really be a hit. And, whenever you do see like PlayStation really bumping out, and you talk about like their support of indies, right? They obviously believe in this game. So people think it's good. I'm not one of them, but there are those people out there. And I think there is value to be had. I think it's just been muddied by a bunch of different factors. The main one, I think, still being the pacing. It really does drag on.
It's what we always talk about in review, right? Like an editor really would have gone far, I think, on this game of coming in and trimming some of the fat and giving it a bit more honed in and just centering the player on where they were, at least for you.
And I'm sure they did do that. And what sucks too is like I can't wait to hear what happened to you because I'm so intrigued by the different path lines, but because it's so long and it does have like a number of problems, I'm like, well, there's no way I'm gonna, like when I first got this game and I was reading about it and double checking like what the, PR beats of it are, I'm like, cool, I'm gonna try to maybe do like multiple playthroughs because I think there's a lot of value in decision games when you can do that for a review. But I'm like 11 hours in, like Thursday evening, I'm like, this is the playthrough and we're just gonna have to go with this. But
I'm right there with you.
But yeah, I am curious.
I look at the trophies, right? And I'm like, oh, wow. I didn't even like, because again, like the game, I feel the way it goes and plays, it kind of has what I was talking about with Last of Us, where, like when I finished Last of Us Part 1, I didn't want to play it again. I didn't want to, I was like, I've had my experience. All the emotions I had were that, and that's how it played out, right? Almost similar to how Walking Dead kind of used to feel, but I always reviewed those. So I did play all the permutations. This one was a similar thing of like, man, we got to the end and, wow, his daughter did this. And that was an interesting decision. I wouldn't have seen that coming. And then looking through trophies, I'm like, oh, wow, like, right. She could have gone off and done something totally different. This could have, blah, blah. But it's like, those are really interesting things. But yeah, I don't want to sit back down and put another 11 hours back into it to see those.
Someone tell me what happens to you, and that's good enough.
And maybe that's a cool thing to do with it in terms of then we'll talk about it. And that's what the post show will be today. Or as I'm now calling
I guess
it,
so.
P.S. I love you, XO director's cut. That's what we'll call the post shows.
Yes, 100%.
All right, we'll get to that in a second then, Janet. Thank you. I'm glad you played this. I gotta go to watch your review. Where can we go see your review again?
YouTube.com/GameOnysus, and then the link to the written review is in the description as well, but it's gamingfortheculture.wordpress.com.
I saw a lot of people asking in our live chat too how much it is. $25. You're looking at $25 tomorrow. Where the Heart Leads comes out. We will talk about that in the post show. But for now, let me remind you that this is PS I Love You XOXO. Each and every week, Janet and I come together to talk about all things PlayStation. If you want to nerd out with us, you can go to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. Over on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, you can write in with your questions, your comments, your concerns, everything under the PlayStation sun, and you can praise Shuhei. Of course, over there, you can also get the show ad-free. Of course, over there, you can get the show with the exclusive post show, aka the director's cut. We do each and every week. No matter where you get the show, thank you so much for supporting it. Remember, if you have no bucks to toss our way, it's no big deal. You'll miss out on things like the Kind of Funny Next Gen podcast and access to the Gamescast and all that jazz. Who has Phil Spencer on tomorrow? But you can still get us on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames, roosterteeth.com, and podcast services around the globe each and every Tuesday at 6 a.m. No matter how much PlayStation news tries to break on Tuesday morning and screw us over, we don't care. One day we'll care, probably. Housekeeping for you. The Kind of Funny podcast is up right now. It has Fandom's Eric Goldman up. If you don't know Eric, he used to work at IGN for a long time with us. Then he went to Marvel. Now he's over at Fandom. And basically, he knows every celebrity working in entertainment today. So Tim had the idea of just bringing him on and saying, tell us your celebrity stories. And then, like, we gave him permission, Janet. We're like, this is where you name drop. Just tell us whatever that we're asking you to do this. And so for an hour and a half, he tells us the craziest stories he has from Hollywood. They're all fascinating. A lot of different press parties. What CW cast member or at least show poured a beer on his wife? You'll find out. You can get that Kind of Funny podcast on youtube.com/kindoffunny. Podcast services around the globe. Programming note for you. Of course, you probably noticed Blessing isn't here today. Blessing will also not be here on next week's PS I Love You XOXO. He was bit by a snake in both of his eyes, and he will miss both of those episodes. But he will be doing things in between then. But it's snake recovery on Monday. You should be like our Patreon producers, Marcus Standifer, a.k.a. Shatatic, Tyler Ross, Julian the Gluten-Free Gamer, James Hastings, Casey, Andrew, Elliot, and more. Of course, you could also thank our sponsors. They're going to be Honey, Sennheiser, and Titan, but I'll tell you about that later. For now, let's begin this show with topic of the show. Sorry, I said tockets, like topics, but I was getting ready to say tops. Here's the problem, Janet Garcia. All right, I feel like you and I don't work together enough. Of course, I book you on the shows, I bring you on the shows. We do this thing. We're easing into our PS I Love You XO relationship here together. You know what I mean? As partners or whatever. But it's a Monday, meaning I got some rest over the weekend. And then I came in to do content, but this is my first show. This is my first show of the day. So it's like, I'm not only energized, Janet, I'm over energized. You know what I mean? Where all the coffees of the day want to get out. All the energy wants to get out. So that's where I'm at right now and why it's harder to hold it together than ever, Barrett. Do you understand, Barrett? Do you understand on the ones and twos?
Yeah.
See, you sound over energized too, Barrett.
Over energized by the caramel latte that I had earlier today, Greg, and
sure.
From this CZ that I'm drinking right now,
Sure. Okay. I'll do it. Janet, what are you energized on?
I'm on my second cup of coffee, so I'm good to go. And this is also, I think, and now I'm trying to think if I have other things to do today. I think this is my last main thing that I quote unquote have to do. So it's like the high of, after this, I just like make dinner and then I just chill out. So
sure, you can just burn it all today. You just burn all the energy here.
Yeah, I can leave it all here. Like this is what it culminates to. You know what I mean?
On the floor. Well, let's start then with topic of the show. Hideo Kojima doesn't like director's cuts. What about you? We're going to start, of course, with some tweets that were launched today, Monday, as we record this. Of course, you can watch live if you support us on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, just like Ryan is, the Lou is, and Hardle Find is. Damn, not Hardle. That'd be stupid. That's hard to find, two being the Roman numeral. You understand, though? I'm so fast reading this stuff. I don't have time to think about it, all right? These thought-provoking names, and nobody's got time for that. Anyways, back to Kojima's tweets from today. There was two of them. A director's cut in a movie is an additional edit to a shortened version that was either released reluctantly because the director did not have the right to edit it or because the running time had to be shortened. In the game, it is not what what was cut, but what was additionally produced that was included. Director's plus ? So in my opinion, I don't like to call it a director's cut. If you need a reminder why Hideo Kojima is talking about this is because he is about to publish Death Stranding director's cut for PlayStation on September 24th. Of course, we knew about this from Jeff Keighley's Summer of Games kickoff event. And then there was a state of play last week that we'll give you a quick recap on later, where they actually gave us more details talking about new weapons, new equipment and vehicles, new modes, new missions, new areas to explore, expanded storylines, enhancements to the UI, and then, of course, the fact that Half-Life and Cyberpunk 2077 content that had been added to the PC version is coming to Death Stranding director's cut, and your PS4 console save will be transferable, and you can get the PS5 if you already own PS4. You can get the PS5 Death Stranding director's cut digital deluxe edition upgrade for only $10. But this isn't so much about that news, which I'm sure you know. This is more about Kojima, a man trying to sell you a director's cut, saying, "Nah, I don't like the director's cut name." What was your reaction to this one today, Janet? I know we talked about it on Kind of Funny Games Daily for a second.
Felt so, like, again, the word vindicated. I'm wondering if I'm using that word correctly. I've just felt so justified in my thinking because I had this conversation maybe like 1 or 2 nights ago with my boyfriend where I was like, why is it a director's cut? Like, it's not like they're adding in things that were taken out. And he's like, you don't know, maybe they are. I'm like, I don't think they are. And then when I saw this, I literally ran.
Gaslight you.
I was like, this is so living with like another Sony fan is just like, it's too much. But I was like, this is kind of weird, right? I feel like it's just like kind of a marketing beat. And when I saw this, I literally ran to the kitchen. I was like, guess who agrees with me? Hideo Kojima. And he's like, I never disagreed with you. I just said that, this is him confirming that what you thought was true. I'm like, no, this is me and Hideo Kojima, right side of history, and also both going to bump this game because I finally have a reason to play this because I missed it the first time. Yeah, I mean, I am surprised a little bit because it just feels like maybe he would just go with it at this point. Like, why bring it up? But maybe he so disagrees with it that he's like, I don't want y'all to think that this is my idea. Like, I also think it's a little silly, but it is what it is. That was sort of my take.
Yeah, 100%. Right. Where I think it's fascinating to see Hideo come out, but he is one of the few people, right, who could do this. Like, I am well aware that people working with PlayStation and working on it, PlayStation PR is tight-lipped and keeps people they are working with in check quite a bit. But how are you going to stop Kojima from doing something, right? I'm sure as soon as this went up and started making the rounds of PlayStation PR, I was like, god damn it, you know what I mean? But it is one little storm to weather, I guess, as you come out here. Because again, it's not like he's saying his game isn't good or it isn't there aren't adding value to it. It's this conversation about the name, which is something, we've been talking about, I feel like, on PS I Love You, on other shows. And, as I continue to say, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. We are going to get another director's cut, whether it be Last of Us Part 2, whether it be Bloodborne, whether it be whatever PlayStation exclusive you want to slide in here, that will thus confirm beyond a shadow of a doubt that, Death Stranding director's cut, Ghost of Tsushima director's cut, and whatever Game X director's cut, that this is the new PlayStation label that is replacing Game of the Year. That is not, it's replacing Game of the Year. It's in a similar vein to Greatest Hits, although a Greatest Hit would bring down the cost of a game. It was interesting to see Hideo come out here and do this and try to pull it out. So I wanted to go overall though with it. Talk to me about what's your read on this new label being director's cut? Do you like that?
I mean, I fall for it, to be honest. Like, I am a sucker. I am the reason they have this because admittedly, I never liked, I mentioned this on Games Daily too. Like, I never vibe with DLC. I'm like, I already beat the game. If you're lucky, I beat it. And that's not to say that I'm like such an impressive gamer to get, but most people don't finish the games they start. That's just facts. I think we've all been there. So it's like, look, if I finished it, that was cool. We had our time, we had our fun, and now I'm gone and I won't come back. That's basically it. But I'm like, oh, this is a director's cut though. It kind of, it's different, or it kind of adds, I guess, a little bit more justification for me on picking it up, especially because of the, next gen enhancements that are attached to it. So I'm a little bit of a sucker for it, just a little bit. Yeah. But ultimately, I'm not a fan of the title because I think the only time that you should introduce new terms into the lexicon, especially like, as gaming evolves as a medium, is when it helps make sense or add a label and contextualize something that is like a new phenomenon where it's like, oh, we, need a new way to define this. It's the same way how like an open world game on the PS2 era would not be called an open world game today. It's called maybe wide linear, right? We come up with new phrases to kind of describe phenomenon as they advance. I don't think what these director's cuts is warranted because they're not doing anything that we haven't already seen. Like, oh, it's DLC. I guess the enhancements is kind of new, but right. I guess that's maybe the new angle there. But again, it's really just PlayStation's way to actually package something that you get on Xbox for free. So
Jeff Grubb writes into patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, just like you can be part of PS I Love You XOXO, and says, I love it ironically. I think it is very funny and also very Sony. It's like SIE saying, quote, gee, we wish we could give you free updates, but these darn director guys, they demanded to have their cuts. Oh, well, what can you do? Money, please. And that's the other wrinkle to this, right? For the lead up to it, and we've seen it so many times, of Xbox Smart Delivery making sense. It just works. There you go. You get your enhancements. And then PlayStation having to repackage these things and figure out the way to do it and not make it feel like they are screwing you over, that you are just paying for a PlayStation 5 upgrade, right? And so that seems to be what Director's Cut is giving them, right? This clear pathway to being like, all right, cool, you get the game you already had, or, you're upgrading the game you already have, but you are getting X, Y, Z, whether it's Death Stranding's new missions, whether it's Iki Island in Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut. Like, they're adding in value for it, right? And I think Dan likes everything writes in on that front too. patreon.com/kindoffunnygames and says, I'm into it. It's just marketing, and I do think using Director's Cut is more attractive than Expanded or Game of the Year Edition or Complete. It immediately suggests that you're getting content that wasn't in the original game, as opposed to just a compilation of what's been released, parentheses, and so far that's actually the case. We'll see if it continues. It also feeds into the general sense of cinematic gravitas that PlayStation's first-party games had during the PlayStation 4 generation. Ding, 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 all over the map there, right? But especially at the end there, right? What do we've been talking about it all, so much on these 78 episodes of PS I Love You XOXO. It is PlayStation being PlayStation. What that means is we make AAA single player art, we make games, we make the big budget AAA games that are going to move the industry. And so, yeah, coming out and being like, boom, we're the Criterion collection of games, and that's what you're getting out of these. This isn't the best of. This is us taking what was already one of the best games of the generation and making it better. I love this cinematic gravitas, Janet.
Yeah, I think it has like that sophisticated layer that, you can either love or hate Sony for. I'm a little bit in like both camps because I do enjoy how like over the top everything always is, but it's also like, oh, it's Sony, like we have like suits and an orchestra and like all these other things. Like it just sort of makes it seem a little bit fancier than I think it would be if it was just, completed edition or expanded edition. But yeah, it totally is leaning in on that, which is another reason that I was kind of both surprised and then kind of not with the Kojima thing, because he loves film so much. I'm like, you would think that he'd be like all about, oh, this is my director's cut, but maybe he loves film so much that he like wants to keep those things kind of delineated and wants to like, make sure that's like an accurate usage or something. Like I'm not sure if that helps or hurts his feelings on the director's cut thing.
Him, right? Where I think, yeah, exactly what you're saying, that as he writes, right, to Hideo, who is a huge film buff, right? Director's cut means something specific, and this doesn't apply to games. And I also think it's interesting, it's a conversation we were having, me and Tim had on Games Daily a couple weeks ago, where when we were talking about, he's like, for Ghost of Tsushima, like, who is the director? And of course I named Nate and Jason from over there, but he means like to the audience, who's the director of Ghost of Tsushima, right? Like Kojima in Death Stranding, like he's Kojima, that it's out there, it's in front of it. His name's all over everything about it. And so I think for him personally, yeah, not only does this not match what he would think of a director's cut for film, I think he understands that plenty of people see this in probably, I was going to say didn't see Ghost. This was revealed before Ghost, right? Saw this at Summer Games Fest and thought, oh, this is like Kojima saying it's his director's cut. And it's very clear him being like, listen, no, this isn't that. Not that I think this isn't cool or whatever, but it's not my vision. Because I think he definitely has kicked that around in his head before of what a director's cut of one of his games would be and what a special edition, if he was to make it, or the Criterion collection would actually be. Other things I wanted to bring in here, right? Let's talk about value of it. All right. Emmett Watkins Jr. writes into patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. Of course, shout out to everybody as usual. PS I Love You XOXO's audience is incredibly responsive. I put this out, I think, with record time, maybe like an hour and a half, an hour and 45 before we were going live. Of like, give me your thoughts. And so many of you wrote in about director's cuts. Emmett Watkins Jr. writes in and says, director's cut could easily just be a Game of the Year edition or a definitive edition. But outside of what that initiative, I hope the trend of paying for upgrades doesn't continue. Death Stranding isn't egregious, as $10 for new content and new features is more than fine. But with Ghost of Tsushima, charging $10 solely for the PS5 exclusive features feels like a ripoff. $20 of what sounds like a lot of new content is great, but another $10 just for trigger features, faster loads, and better visuals when the PS4 game already runs at 4K 60 and has very fast loading on PS5 feels absurd. I'm fine with the director's cut name living on, even if it is just a bad omen for genre diversity. But I just don't want the pricing structure attached to it to continue, especially when so many other publishers are doing free upgrades. Janet, where do you come down on the value of Death Stranding's $10 upgrade, and this is if you already own PS4 version, and then Ghost's $20 upgrade for the PlayStation 4 version, and then an extra $10 to get to $30 total for PS5?
Yeah, it's funny because, capitalism and how you perceive what is or isn't a good value or a good deal is always just super contextual and very fickle, because it's a very emotional decision. Most of us make a lot of our financial decisions at least a little bit emotion, whether it's things that you want, stuff that you're, I've paid plenty of, I've bought Uno on Switch. Like I'll buy stuff that I'm just excited about. So it's funny because I would have thought like, I don't think I would have thought, like, blink twice at the Ghost Director's Edition being the pricing structure that it is until the Death Stranding one came out. And then it's like, oh, someone can just charge less for what seems like it's debatable how similar it is, though, too, I think is another thing to think about here, though, because we know there's new story missions. There's like the circuit, like the highway Mario Kart circuit that's in Death Stranding and a bunch of other stuff. It feels like it's going to be a lot of content, but at the same time, Ghost is so much more laid out with even just saying like, this is the island, it's a new area, and that thing, it just depends on, well, how much more. And then you're thinking like, okay, well, Ghost maybe has 10 hours of content. I'm making up numbers here. Death Stranding really only has 5, but the game itself's really like, now we're just sort of doing these like mental gymnastics on it. I think it's an all right deal if you are excited about new content in the game. I feel like I'd pay, upwards of those prices for DLC in general if I was passionate about DLC. I've bought some DLC before. Sure. So it just depends on your passion level for it. For me, the Death Stranding thing is an awesome deal because it's just $10, which is, I feel like, just generally kind of low. Ghost, it's like, do I feel like pursuing that extra content? Because I already beat Ghost. I didn't beat Death Stranding. So for me, I'm way more down to drop money on it because I've had the code for like a while. Like, I have the game, I just never got around to it. So it's like a way to reignite. I think it just depends on where you're at with the game and what you're excited about to play.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up capitalism and you bring up what the value of a dollar is to whoever the beholder is, right? And that couldn't be more true. Where I don't know, and we won't know obviously until September and August now for August for Ghost and September for Death Stranding, right? When we get our hands on them. But yeah, the grand total of $30 to go PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5 for Ghost speaks to me that the Ghost expansion will be meatier. That this Iki Island is going to be, like you said, 10 hours, I don't know, 8 hours, a healthy investment of getting in there, let alone the new stuff they're bringing to Legends, let alone the lip sync, let alone all the different, I don't want to say bells and whistles of the PlayStation 5 version, because that puts it into the same bucket as haptic feedback and resistance on your trigger, which is cool. We've gone over that over and over again. And the Death Stranding blog post goes out of its way to talk exactly about that, but it's exactly what you think it would be, right? Whereas Ghost is a bit more, I think, in terms of how they're using it to make the gameplay experience better. Toss that out the window. In general, we need to get both of them and see what the content is. And the way they, over on the PlayStation blog, Jay Bohr from Kojima, right? Kojima Productions laid it all out of what's going on with it. And he talks about how and the new content isn't just thrown on there and bolted onto the game, right? They're talking about it being built from the ground up, all this stuff, and it's going to be woven into the core game experience and will be made available through discovery as you play. Most of the new content is fairly easy to find, though there are some bits and pieces that will take some time to find and unlock. Although I can't really go into much detail about the new missions and extended storyline at this point, what I can share is a few hints have been added in the latest trailer that we released for clues on what you can expect. It's this weird push of, okay, cool. So for Death Stranding, a game I beat but didn't platinum, when I turn it on, and is there going to be 5 new missions piled into all the other missions I didn't do? And then what would make them more compelling than the stuff I didn't do? And we'd go through that way, right? Whereas Ghost, the game I platinumed and adored, and when I finally was completely done with it, was man, I really wanted more. For them to give me a new island, for me, that's easily worth the $20. And then to do the $20 thing, yeah, I could play it backwards compatible on my PlayStation 5 and not worry about it. But at that point, yeah, I want to give them 10 more bucks because I want it to look as good. And I want all the different features and bells and whistles and all the things of the PlayStation 5. And so that's me personally, right? Plenty of people have written and not saying that.
Whether or not it's worth it is also down to the quality of the experience as well. Whether or not it's a good experience. Obviously with DLC, it gets kind of tricky, or DLC, director's cut, whatever you want to call it, because there is that feeling of, well, is it enough to be good, or does it need to feel like it does something different to make it warranted an extra purchase? If it's more of the same. Yeah. Times when people are reviewing DLC, which I don't, I feel like that's the trickiest thing to review, because there is that question of how much do you weigh it against the base game, and should that matter at all? Again, it's based on whether or not the content's good, because in terms of hours, you could be 10 hours and not be good. It's we just talked about Where the Heart Leads being too long, right? That's a game I wish was shorter for a lot of reasons, so I think it totally depends on that. And there are games that are only a few hours that I've paid $25 for happily, that I've paid $12 for. Chicory, I put 33 hours into it. That's a $25 or $30 game. I bought the merch that they have on the Yeti, and someone pointed out that the merch in its entirety, like the pins and the shirt, is more than the game. And I also bought that because I'm like, I love the game. Sure, let's just keep on piling on. So I think it, whether or not it's a good deal, it matters to a degree, because we do want to sometimes put pressure on companies to do X practices and not Y. So I do think if you really hate the next gen upgrade pay thing and you want to take a stand with your dollar, you're totally in the right to do that. But I think, whether or not it's worth it, it's always such a opinionated, what your taste, what your style is basis.
And that's one of the things David, aka Mizuki, writes in about. David says, I love the idea of PlayStation Director's Cuts, but I have concerns about the implementation. Director's Cuts, from what we've seen so far, are just the base game plus some enhancements and DLC content. In practice, if you've already played the games, upgrading can be a pain and pretty expensive. For Ghost, PS5 owners, me, and this is him, not, well, me too, I own a PS5, but Ghost owners, me, David, have to pay an additional 50% for most of the same content. $10 on top of a $60 game isn't a huge deal for the benefits of the generation swap, but $10 on top of 20 is actually pretty huge, and I hope that this is not normal going forward. That is in addition to a pain in the ass save transfer system and paying more for the base games. It does feel like a bit of a cash grab to justify keeping the games at 60/70 for another 1 to 2 years. PlayStation is trying to pull a Nintendo pricing scheme and justify it by adding content a year or more after release, and I'm not too happy about that. See, I cut the other way with it, where even when we start talking, and again, this is me talking on my ass because we all are. We don't know how long Ghost is going to be. We don't know how long Death Stranding is going to be, all that stuff. But for Ghost in particular, a game I can't wait to get the director's cut of, because I want the Iki Island stuff and the enhancements that'll come, or the, I guess, expansions that'll come to Legends, even though technically these are all the asterisks you have to put on. Technically, that'll be free for everybody, no matter what. I for me, if you were going to say, hey, we're coming to you in, like, when we thought we were getting Ghost of Iki or Ikishima, right? Where it was going to be, hey, it looks like it's going to be an expandalone game, which we started calling them, right? Where it'll be like Miles Morales. It'll be this drop. It's just going to be this thing. If that would have happened and they charged me $30, I would have been like, fuck yeah, let's go. Like 100%. I would have totally paid that price the same way I paid for Miles Morales in the same way. Now, will the Iki Island and Director's Cut be as long and the details Miles? Don't know. Can't say. But in my head, that's how I rationalize it. It's, when you sit here and you start talking about, well, you're adding $30 to play a game you already have on PlayStation 5. It sounds fucked up, but I think when you start talking about the stuff they added to it, I would easily give them $30 for the Iki Island expansion, not knowing what it is.
Also, I find it hilarious that this person brings, no shade intended, but that they bring up, the Nintendo pricing scheme. If this is a Nintendo pricing scheme, you would pay $60 for the entirety of the game if you're lucky, and you'd be happy to do so. Like, Nintendo has a horror, like with supporting like across generations, it can be downright horrible, like straight up just bad. Like, we're just looking for ways to buy these games. So, it's all three of the big three have different pricing models and approaches to how they support franchises throughout the generation and acquire people that may have missed games. So yeah, I think it all lands on what you feel comfortable with and excited about. I'm never going to try to pretend like, unless something's an extremely good deal, it's kind of hard to like sell someone on, $30 is going to be worth it because it seems like it'll be fun. Like, if that seems like too much for you, maybe it then is. Like, I think only unless it's extremely obviously cheap, it's always going to be a little bit up for debate. And y'all know you got a bunch of games to finish that you haven't played anyway. So just, make that, it's up to you on whether or not you want to like dive back in for that. For me, Ghost, a game that I wasn't like super in love with, I probably won't pick that up. Like, I won't go out of my way for it, at least. Like, I wouldn't mind covering it because I think people are curious.
Full stop, Janet Garcia. All right. You talk like I don't consume all your content on every platform. Yes. A game you didn't care that much for, Ghost is. I saw a fucking TikTok from you this weekend with the Family Guy Godfather audio. Yes. All right. So like, it was not that you didn't care for it. You just don't like it. You don't like Ghost.
Don't like is, I guess, do I like it? I guess I'd have to say I don't like it, but I do think it's good. I just don't like it. And I can differentiate those two, which I think a lot of people forget that is possible to differentiate liking something and thinking something's good. Yes.
Man, are you kidding me? You think the internet can't get that level of different shading of an opinion? Not impossible. No, I assure you the internet totally understands that. You won't be badgered for it your entire career for saying you don't like a game, even though you respect the game, even though you acknowledge the game is great. Never going to happen.
I know. Sometimes I'm just like, is Greg even a PlayStation fan? It just feels like you're not. What is this based on? But yeah, that is where I land on it. So I'm not excited to go back to that. Death Stranding, I have no idea what my opinion's going to be. I've heard a lot of people's opinions. I'm excited to go into the discourse. I have no cast your predictions now on whether or not I like this game, because I have not played it. I have no idea, but I'm excited to have a reason to go back on a modern or next gen console, depending on how you want to couch the PS5 thing, and like DualSense integration. I'm excited, and I haven't played something from like, well, obviously it's Kojima Productions and it's kind of different, but you know, a Kojima game in a long time. So I'm ready. I'm excited.
Hell yeah. Yeah. I'm really fascinated for you to play through. And actually, I guess at that point, 9:26, I'll probably be getting ready for my paternity leave where you are coming on to replace me. The whole reason you're here. So I'll be interested to listen to see as you go. Cause that's the thing. Like, it's Ghost and Death are two sides of I enjoyed these games.
You're just gonna skirt past that.
Ghost and Death, two sides. I'm starting to sound like Kojima by accident.
Is this where the heart leads? No.
Save for the spoiler cast. Two games I really enjoyed, but Ghost was the one that I couldn't get enough of, and I saw all the way through, and I wanted more when it was said and done. And Death Stranding was. I felt that way and contemplated platinuming it, but I did the mistake of putting it down and moving on to the next two reviews. And then by the time I came back to it, I wasn't there anymore. It was hard to get back on the horse. And now when I sit here and I think back to Ghost, right, like it is, man, I love the island. I love the music. I love the visuals. I loved the story and Jin and his dynamics with Lady Masako and stuff like that. But Death is like, man, I really loved the walking. I really loved the climbing these peaks and how serene it was and how calming it was. But I don't sit there and go, man, I love the story of Death. You know what I mean? I love Death Stranding story is what really pulled me through. And I really want to get back to X, Y, and Z. It's like, no, I liked the delivery method of it. So I'm hopeful that when I do boot it up in September, that cool, I'm dropped back in. There's new content. Maybe there's a quick onboarding process to get me going again. And then I am just out delivering packages again. But I don't know. There's so much in there with the community and the building and stuff that I don't know if I'd be back to running. Like, yeah, I want to be part of that. I want to be doing that again. Linky Dragoon has one quick twist I like on this question we were talking about. Because, Janet, we are building to what I was originally going to title this episode. I was originally going to title it PlayStation Director's Cut. Do you love him or hate him? And so we've now packaged it around Kojima, but I do want you to answer that question eventually. But right now, Linky writes in and says, I'm not a fan of director's cuts on PlayStations. I would much rather see PlayStation Studios double down on standalone titles like Lost Legacy and Miles Morales. These expand-alones let studios give us more of the games we love at a quicker pace and toy around with new ideas / formats that may be carried over to the full-scale sequel. Director's cuts, in the case of Ghost of Tsushima, seem to be adding smaller pieces of content that don't seem as impactful. Obviously, none of us have played the content of the Iki expansion, but I'm assuming it's not going to be heavily tied into the main narrative of Ghost of Tsushima or its sequel. This strikes me as something the size of Final Fantasy VII Remake Intermission, which left me wanting more by the end rather than a complete story like Lost Legacy or Miles Morales. How do you take that? What's your first thought, Janet?
I like this idea. I wish we could just make these kind of things come true without having to
get Herman Hulse on the phone and be like,
hey, have you thought about just making this different? Yeah, and just drag and drop into a different game. But yeah, I do enjoy having, I guess I like hard lines with things. You know, the whole reason that I don't really usually go to DLC is because I'm like, I already did that game though. And they're like, oh, well, it's new. But I'm like, but it's the same game, right? Like, it's the same thing. Like, I think I like separating it out. I think it ends up giving it more of its own conversation. I think it, you know, is often more of an indicator of where the franchise is going. And it's just generally more interesting. And I don't even think they need to be long. Like, I was a huge fan of, what is it? I don't know if it's Life is Strange technically. Captain Spirit. I think it's still couched in Life is Strange.
Yeah.
And that's super short. I think it's like 30 minutes or something. But that was in that nature. I mean, it was free also, but so that's kind of a different thing. But if you have not played that, go play it. It was like incredibly moving. And I love little stuff like that because it draws my attention in a way that I wouldn't be when it is packaged. So yeah, I mean, I definitely would prefer to see that. And the whole Final Fantasy Remake intermission thing, I was just blown that happened because I'm like, this intermission reminded me of like, you know how when you don't finish your dinner and you get dessert, but I guess that can be fun sometimes. So maybe that's why they did it. But it's just like you were full already. You got a lot going on making the main franchise that's pieced out into who knows how many games. Now you're pulling off to the side of the road and doing that. That just kind of blew my mind that was even done. Not that it wasn't cool, but you know, yeah.
For me, I think I understand what Linky Dragoon's saying, and I think historically, I and like what he's pitching, right? Of like expand-alones give you more games, quicker pace. They get to toy around with ideas, yada yada yada. Yes, I agree with that, and I like that. I'm not ready to throw the baby out with the bathwater and say that that's not what the Iki expansion will be. It's interesting. Lanky pulls in, of course, that like, oh, I don't think it's going to have as big, since it's going to be set in what they said Act 2. When you pick up an Act 2 of Ghosts is when you could go out, or the second island, you could go to Iki as well. People are like, oh, so it won't actually be set after the story and it won't actually affect that. That for me, I struggle honestly to sit here and really, I mean, I know the broad strokes and we won't spoil them here, but like what was like where we left Jin and crew at the end of Ghost. Like I know the broad strokes, but I don't remember the minute details of it, to the point, like for me, that game is about the relationships with the NPCs. And so the way they pitched Iki of going there and something else from his past, it's going to be somebody else from his past that he hasn't seen since a kid, is doing something, working with the Mongols, yada, 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 has failed him. And you'll go and do that entire quest line, or probably a couple, and have that same experience I had with Lady Moscow, right? And that's what I want out of that content. I'm not holding it up to the, oh man, it's got to be completely storyline defining. It has to have main reverberations on it, right? Because what you're bringing up with, Captain Spirit, right? Captain Spirit, I remember coming out and being the standalone thing that you could get your hands on, right? And then did that have major reverberations on reverberations is not what the right word is. It doesn't sound like, as I say it, I'm like, that
probably isn't. But you know what, when you said it though, I believed it. Like, you had
did
the
that
delivery,
have major ripple
and I was
effects
like,
on
yeah,
Life
I
is
was like,
Strange
wow,
2?
he's so creative.
And the answer of course is no. Yes, the kid from it pops up. Yes, spoilers in Life is Strange 2, but it's not like, I actually, for some reason, I forget why I had skipped Captain Spirit, I think. And so like when he popped up, I knew it was Captain Spirit Kid, but I didn't like feel like I was missing something big about it. I think I think, to the thing of, oh man, how does it all work and what's going to happen? I think Iki is going to be very close to Miles. This is a shot in the dark. I do not know anything, obviously. I think it's going to be in terms of, yes, it's going to be what you were just talking about, Janet, which I totally agree with you of. It's DLC, so it's more, right? It's more of what you were already playing. I think it's going to be more, obviously, of Ghost of Tsushima, but I think it will be different. I do think it'll be a place where they will experiment and do not crazy things, but different things, kind of how they did in Miles Morales.
I think it's also kind of tricky too. And the more I'm thinking about this question, and my gut still is, oh yeah, I think standalones are a little bit more fun or intriguing, or they're more appealing to me inherently because it's a quote unquote new game. But at the same time, didn't, a lot of people, including myself to a degree, in terms of fleshing out the story, feel like Miles wasn't quite enough, right? So it's like, how do you negotiate those two things where there are a lot of people that feel like the, standalone situations aren't delved enough, and then like, oh, the DLC is so long, it could be its own game, but then when we make it its own game, y'all are like, this isn't long enough to be its own game. So I'm sure they're at least parsing with that a little bit and creatively. And I think also too, we have to like keep in mind the rationale behind why they might be doing some of this, to kind of conjure up excitement for these studios and their projects and kind of get you back in or get you on the train if you haven't been on there yet. So, I'm not too mad at whatever way it goes. And I do like that we get a multitude of things and that these come out in different ways. And sometimes we have episodic games, and then you see episodic games going away from being episodic because they notice maybe that makes more sense. So you always see these things evolving over time.
The DLC problem, right? We were just talking about, right? Of like how many people actually finish the games they buy, period. How many people who buy the DLC or buy DLC for games they love, how many people actually finish episodic games. This all goes into it. And even like to Lanky Dragoon's comment, right? Director's cuts in the case of Ghost seem to be adding smaller pieces of content that just don't seem as impactful. You're talking about not having an impact, right? And the argument there being, of course, well, if we put it out like this DLC, this expansion content that isn't standalone, people aren't going to play it. I always go back to, again, Spider-Man, the city that never sleeps. Like we want those three pieces. I forget if that was the overall, if that was just one episode, but the three pieces of it. By the end of that radically changes a character we loved from Spider-Man PS4. Like that character is in a completely different place and not friends with Spidey anymore. And so it's like that happens buried in DLC. It didn't get referenced in Miles Morales, which isn't surprising. And maybe it got referenced and I just don't remember, but it wasn't like a plot point. Like, how are they going to tackle that in Spider-Man 2? Is that going to be a throwaway line? Is that person going to pop up and there has to be a cutscene in the very beginning, similar to Kingpin in the very beginning that sets it up? Like, we're saying they're, oh man, they're doing this thing that aren't very impactful. There is a huge impact for what they did with Insomniac Spider-Man's DLC, but like, how many people know about that? How many people really care? Like, it's what we're talking about, Janet, of like, you're a video game maker and you want to put out more content. You obviously want to make more money because this is the business. And so what's the best way to do that and keep people engaged? And no matter what, you keep talking about these audiences that are smaller. You know what I mean? You have your big release and immediately it starts retracting in terms of who's going to see, as you said today, like who's going to sit through credits, who's going to get all the way there and have fun with that, let alone come back for DLC expansions, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, I think too, like talking about how people play games and whether or not you'll pick up the DLC or know these things, like that kind of stuff happens all the time. Like I played, Last of Us really late, like right before the second one came out, and I like never played Left Behind. I still have not played Left Behind. I want to. I hear it's awesome, but like I know it's so sad, but like I was like, where do I get it from? Whatever. We're just gonna keep moving, keep trucking along, mainlining it, whatever. We'll sense it. We'll sense Left Behind. We'll play it later. But that happens. I'm sure I'm not the only person that's happened to. There are people that probably played Last of Us 2 and didn't play Last of Us 1. Like you have people jump into franchises at any point. That's why one of the most common questions is, do I need to have played the first game to have played this? And that's why so many games too, you're starting to see that. Do you want to watch this video that explains the last game? Like Resident Evil did that. And it was like, and I had been the last game, but I'm like, let's just double check that we know what's going on, So I think companies are always negotiating that, combined with, again, how many people are actually finishing it. And then the stats for DLC are like really low for how many people play like 100%. DLC generally. So, at the end of the day, make your art, hopefully get paid, like live your life. Like I'm not gonna really hate you too much for it as much as I might have. My own preferences are things that get me excited to make a purchase or to spend time playing through it.
Yeah, and I think that's the takeaway from it is you can't make everybody happy. And I think, it is eye of the beholder on what's worth $10, $30, $60, $70. It's
the first I'm hearing about this.
I know, I hate to break it to you. I hate to break it to you, Janet.
Yeah, certainly no one listening to this falls into that camp. Everyone's happy here.
No, especially about us and hosts and stuff. No, they're fine.
100%.
It's totally fine. Don't worry about it. No, but I think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out and, what is impactful. And I think that varies studio, story to story. And I'm sure there's so many people who, and I would think Kojima with his director's cut, which he says he doesn't even like the name of, right? Like that's a good takeaway.
Works hard,
I expect the Iki Island stuff to be more Ghost of Tsushima, which means it will be, to me, poignant and have characters I really care about and relationships I want to see through. Whereas Death Stranding's stuff, I don't expect that. I expect it to have more weird, like tar monsters that are coming out and like are all black and disgusting and like tendrils and shit and like people flying around and invisible.
Also, that robot with the little legs that you can like sit in it and he can be your friend. What's it called?
New cargo thing
buddy
you can ride or whatever, right? Like there's all
it has
those
like some
kind
cute
of
name. Yeah, there's that.
And like little thing, but I expect the Ghost directors or the Death Stranding director's cut to be like almost enhancements in the way you play. When I see the firing range and I see the new weapons, that makes me go, oh man, you know what? I think we talked about this on Games Daily. I never really enjoyed fighting the mules before. I kind of sneak past them, but maybe you come back and you do this and it becomes more of an action game. It becomes a little bit more like I want to take them on and be offensive rather than defensive. And maybe that's enough to get me to play more of it. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But again, also, if you're Kojima, and I know you would never say this, Hideo, but maybe also fuck Greg Miller. Like, I'm clearly not the hardcore Death Stranding fan base. I enjoyed it and I reviewed it positively and I have positive memories of it, but I'm not aching to go back. I did feel
like that was the subtext of Kojima's tweet earlier, 10 hours
there was a third part he deleted. It was also fuck that game over Greg. You're like, no.
It was like, I feel like you didn't really. I'm like, you know what? We've all been thinking it, right? Kojima finally put it out there.
You see every other verified gaming person, like, thank you. Somebody had to say it.
Someone finally said it. Brave.
Yeah, exactly.
Bold and brave.
Yeah. And then my question for you before I pivot really quick to a question from Chris Childers is this, Janet Garcia. PlayStation Director's Cuts, as pitched, since we haven't even played one yet. Do you love it or do you hate it?
Oh man, I'm gonna go with love only because I have been asking since like the PlayStation 5 came out for a reason to play Death Stranding again. And if this is what gave it to me, you know what? I may not be in love with the name, but neither is Kojima. And if it's good enough for Kojima, it's gonna have to be good enough for me because there's no other way to play this on PS5 with enhancements.
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat. And again, I'm giving two options. This isn't what about, would you like it? No, we're not saying that. And if it was a love or hate question, I would say love it right now, based on what we know and not having played any of them, right? Because for me, the idea is very similar to what we're talking about with Miles Morales and Spider-Man, right? Where I'm happy I'm getting more of the games I love or games I've enjoyed or the game you love. You know what I mean? Like that so many people with Miles Morales were like, oh man, it wasn't a full-blown Spider-Man 2, or it wasn't, it could have been longer, it could have been this. I was like so happy to get it. Honestly, I've talked about it in passing here and there, but I think it'd be awesome to see Insomniac flirt with that of like, you know what? We're never doing a Spider-Man 2. They're all going to be Spider-Man : and that we're giving you a very specific dialed in story that you're going to get every year and a half, 2 years. That way you're constantly going and like we're spinning them up and doing different things. But rather than sit there and make you wait for 4 years to get this giant triple,
like a web. Weaving a web. Some would say they're weaving a web of narratives.
Yeah, look at that. You know what I mean? A lot of spider asses with string coming out of them. Fuck, I fucked it up.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Damn it.
Start over the entire episode, please.
All right, hit the intro.
Welcome to PS I Love You.
Trash all this and hit the fucking intro, Bear.
Blessing's eyes are still bitten, but we're here.
We knew we couldn't have it. We knew we'd be down a man and it would be rough, but here we are. But like if they did something like that, I'm just happy to get more, and I'm happy to get more faster. So the fact I'm getting more ghosts when I thought I wasn't getting any, I'm getting more ghosts after they went above and beyond with Legends. That just wasn't for me. Now they're coming back to a single player like drop for me. Fuck yeah, let's go. And I hope they're working on Ghost 2 in the background, and that'll get here and everything will be cream cheese for it. But this leads to a question, Janet. We both are on the love side. We can't take it back. That's it. Chris writes in to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, just like you can. It says, hi, Greg and Janet. My question is, when do you think we're going to get a Last of Us Part 2 director's cut? Because I would love to jump back in and have a reason to play it again and platinum it. Thanks for everything you guys do. I want to expand it from not only when, whatever, we'll figure that out, I guess. But more importantly, what would you add
to this episode?
I've already said it. I've been on the record. Like we put Ellie in the thumbnail last week, right? Remember, I was like, it's gonna happen. It's gonna get announced. Blue Point's getting acquired. We know some of the stuff that's happening. We'll future-proof all the episodes. Just put it in there. So, director's cut for Last of Us Part 2, I think, is the easy money for the third one, which does make me think it could happen anytime. But then also, I think Last of Us Part 2 director's cut is kind of tied in with that Last of Us remake that was getting rumored. So you're like, okay, well, if that's happening, they're probably taking more time to get there. So then it just becomes, when is it? Could be imminent, could be really far out. But Janet, what would you want to see in a Last of Us Part 2 director's cut? Like, what would get you
I would
back?
want it to be called pretty much, oh God. The only thing that'll stop me from going back is if I platinum it before the director's cut comes in, because that could throw a wrench in things. Because I actually have not platinumed that.
You get the double plat.
Yeah, I could. I mean, if it's like around, especially if it's around like fall, where it's like, oh, like spooky game season, like October, that would be really dope.
Yeah.
So light prediction for fall. I have no idea what they're doing with this franchise, but I would love, I don't know if this is too much. Like, and also if we think of like deals, right, where like Ghost is not maybe the best saving deal and Death is sort of like, oh, it's like pretty good. What if this was like the ultimate deal where it's Last of Us director's cut and it's everything? You get the first one remade, you get the second one, you get Left Behind, and you get whatever enhancements. Because the only thing that's sort of throwing a wrench in the idea of Last of Us Part 2, specifically director's cut for me, is that they've already gone in and done some updates. Like, I mean, nothing super significant, but they have done a little bit of like improving it for PS5. Again, nothing too crazy, but they mentioned they're going to do a little bit more. So it's like, are you guys going to do that? And then also sell me the thing that you already did. So I feel like them being bundled together, almost Hitman 3 style, where you could pick those other levels and stuff. That's what I would want to see.
Do that and put factions in there. I think you're off to the races.
Yeah. I got one for you, Greggy.
Okay, Barrett Courtney from kindoffunny.com. You're on the ones and twos today. What do you got for me?
Yeah, so the way the game is structured, and I'm going to say this without spoiling specific details, right? At one point you go to, Seattle?
Yep.
And then a good portion of the game is structured essentially day 1, 2, 3, and then day 1, 2, 3 again. And I would love to see a cut, like a different editing cut, quote unquote, where you go day 1, day 1, day 2, day 2, day 3, day 3. And then like the crescendo of where those two different storylines end up. That's how I would love to see like a quote unquote director's cut for The Last of Us Part 2. I think that'd be really cool.
So interesting.
And because that's like playing through the game. Like I personally really enjoyed it, but I've always wondered like if you could still raise that tension and maybe not have. I don't know. I think there's some structured things that I would have personally liked to have seen, and that's something that I would have loved to see is that sort of structure instead of what we actually got.
That's cool. That'd be a new reason to turn it on and play it again, right?
I really
Good
want to
opinion.
see if you give me even an hour, because I'm such a Last of Us stan, honestly. Like I fell in love with that franchise hard, and I'm like, this game's great. Which is not news, but like I'm like, okay, y'all were right. Even this many years later, like that, I booted up the. I think actually, did I play it on PS3? I might have actually, like Last of Us when I did get around to it. Amazing. I would love to see too. Again, without spoiling stuff, like we see like the different days and like different like perspectives. I want some Tommy stuff. That's what I want.
Ooh,
Give me
some
even
Tommy-
at 30
yeah,
minutes. It don't even got to just let me taste it. You know, just y'all already know if you played, y'all know exactly the kind of stuff I want to see.
Yeah,
I would love that.
I like
Dude,
it.
that'd be awesome, actually. Yeah, if the Last of Us Part 2 director's cut and like what are they adding into it? They added in a Tommy, like, you know, whatever, couple hours
Tommy
of what was
Line,
going
yeah.
on with
Yeah.
his story.
Also, 11 Abby stuff, as we said before.
Yeah, the Levin Abbey stuff, right, is where I think you start going into like, well, is that Last of Us Part 3? You know what I
Sure.
mean? Like, where do you make that cut? And I think that's one of those things where even with Ghost, where okay, people are not mad, but like, oh man, it sucks that it's not after the end where you could continue the story of where you left off, you know, after the credits. I think at some point when you're a creative like that and the story you want to tell, it's hard to do that. Well, here's the summer vacation between Ghost 1 and Ghost 2, and like Jin got into some shenanigans, but they didn't affect the draft. You know what I mean? Like, what do you do with it? Whereas if you go and not even prequel, but insert something that was happening at the same time as the rest of the story, it's interesting in a way.
I mean, we
Okay,
sort of
cool.
talked about that with the what makes a good PlayStation spinoff too. I think
Yeah.
like the DLC and the expandalones, like all of those are, you know, spinoffs that are still within the same world, but they have a lot of the same characteristics of it's a little different, it's not needed, but it's like an interesting idea and it's exploring a narrative through line that sure, if you miss it, it's not going to be a big deal, but if you experience it. Also, I think, you know, it's important to acknowledge too, as much as a lot of these games do have strong stories throughout them, they're also games that just have fun gameplay. So sometimes you don't necessarily need to get every single story beat to still have an enjoyable experience.
Yeah, 100%. You know what? I like to go when you can get these director's cuts anywhere, right? You got the Ghost, you got the Death. Maybe you'll have Last of Us Part 2. But when I think of director's cuts, I think of patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. Of course, on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, you get all the Kind of Funny content you already know and love, but you can get it with so much more, like writing into the shows, getting the shows with the exclusive post shows, hearing the other shows, getting exclusive shows, having a great time, all on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. Such a great time. You could be watching us record this show live right now on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. A full, I don't know what, like 18 hours before the PlayStation blog fucks something up on a Tuesday morning and ruins what the headline was. Like, it's great. This is like the people that it's live for. They understand what's happening. They're having a great time. However, if you wanted to get the show ad-free, patreon.com/kindoffunnygames is your place to go. But guess what, Jack? You're not watching on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. So let me tell you about our sponsors.
This show is brought to you by Honey. We all shop online, and we've all seen that promo code field taunt us at checkout. But thanks to Honey, manually searching for coupon codes is a thing of the past. Honey is the free shopping tool that scours the internet for promo codes and applies the best one it finds to your cart. Honey supports over 30,000 stores online. They range from sites that have tech and gaming products to popular fashion brands and even food delivery. When you check out, the Honey button drops down, and all you have to do is click Apply Coupons. Wait a few seconds as Honey searches for coupon codes it can find for that site. If Honey finds a working coupon, you watch the prices drop. Kind of Funny loves Honey. Tim Geddes himself tells you all the time to click that dang Honey button. It saved him and many of us here at Kind of Funny plenty of money when we use Honey. Honey has found its over 17 million members, over $2 billion in savings. If you don't already have Honey, you could be straight up missing out on free savings. It's literally free and installs in just a few seconds. And by getting it, you'll be doing yourself a solid and supporting this podcast. I never recommend something we don't use. Get Honey for free at joinhoney.com/kinda. That's joinhoney.com/kinda. This show is also brought to you by Sennheiser. Listen, I love quality when it comes to earbuds. It's all about sound quality, which is why you need to check out Sennheiser. They make the best earbuds that money can buy. Their new Momentum True Wireless 2s deliver the best listening experience that have been finely crafted for even the most discerning listener. With their free smart control app, you can adjust the sound to your personal preference with the built-in equalizer. With up to 28 hours battery life, these earbuds can last you all day and then some. Let me tell you, I can confirm that because ever since I started using these earbuds, they have not died once. All right, I've not used them for years or anything like that. It's only been like a week or so that I've had these things, but I love them and they keep a charge like nothing else that I own. Right now, for my first 100 listeners who go to Sennheiser.com/podcast and use promo code KFGames, you'll receive 15% off the Momentum True Wireless 2 earbuds or any of their amazing products. That's 15% off when you go to SENNHEISER.com/podcast and use our promo code KFGames. Last but not least, we're brought to you by Titan. For far too long, Wall Street has neglected the average investor, giving out the same old generic advice like buy index funds. Meanwhile, for the ultra wealthy, they get access to premium investment strategies and white glove service. That divide didn't sit well with Titan, so they built a premier investment firm, but for everyone. Thanks to Titan, now everyday investors can have their capital invested like a world-class investment firm all through the Titan mobile app. Titan's goal is to give you the access to the best investment experience in the world, but without the high minimums, lockups, or performance fees. Their in-house investment team invests your capital using award-winning strategies and deliver daily research updates via the Titan app. It's like having an elite investment manager in your pocket. Titan manages hundreds of millions of dollars for 25,000 clients and counting, and were named the 2020 top investment app of the year by US News. To get started, download the Titan app, start investing with Titan today, and get 3 months of zero fees. Visit titanvest.com/KFgames. That's 3 months with zero fees at titanvest.com/KFgames.
Ha, see? Fooled you. It was Blessing telling you about our sponsors. That was before the double snake bite. You hate to see it.
So young.
So young to be taken both eyes that quickly for two Mondays. Just 2 Mondays he's affected. Don't worry. He'll be back after that. Janet, it's now time for some PlayStation updates.
Yeah.
This is usually what Blessing usually does this, but we didn't talk about this. Do you want to read these? Do you want to read for a while?
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
All right, first up, we have HBO's The Last of Us Season 1 will have 10 episodes. This comes over from Adele Anchors at IGN, and I'm just going to go ahead and read from that post. HBO's The Last of Us TV series will have a 10-episode first season. Writer and producer Craig Mazin has confirmed. Culture Crave shared the episode count for the upcoming HBO series after it was revealed by Mazin during a recent appearance on the Script Notes podcast, in which he featured a guest to discuss the process of prepping for an entire season of television. Quote, "We have 5 directors across 10 episodes," Mazin revealed around the 1740 mark. Within production kicking off this month, Mazin also touched on the show's shooting schedule and some of the considerations surrounding that. In doing so, he revealed that the show will be mostly set during daylight hours due to the logistics of filming at night, when Calgary only has about 4.5 hours of proper dark to shoot nighttime scenes in right now. Last of Us game director Neil Druckmann is working as both a writer and executive producer alongside Mazin. Druckmann says the series will stay pretty close to the game at places other parts may, quote, deviate greatly. So it's like two completely different things because TV is a different medium. Sure, the drama between the characters is said to be one of the areas the series will explore further.
Janet
Can I
Garcia.
go ahead and read this question also?
No, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We'll get the question in whenever we need to get the question in. All right. Janet Garcia, my question for you is this going to be the first truly great video game adaptation?
I'm gonna go with yes. I feel like, again, maybe it's like my Last of Us stand-up coming out or whatever, but I feel like it already, again, is so cinematic, and we talk about like that being kind of PlayStation stick, and I think Last of Us is where PlayStation's really in its bag for that. So yeah, I mean, it's like Last of Us HBO. It already felt like kind of an HBO experience, even just playing through it. And yeah, like I think there's like a lot of relationships to explore. Like I'm excited at the idea of having more of those like conversations and interactions. So I think this will be really good. But I'm also a little scared that it won't. But either way, I'm in for the ride. It's gonna be funny. I'm not gonna have a good time either way.
Listen, if it's good, if it's great, if it's terrible, I'm going to be having a horrible time watching it anyway. I think you can take it to the bank. I think this is going to be the one that actually does it. And that universally everybody's like, that one was crushing. And I know I was going to say, no, you can't even wiggle room on that, right? Because I feel like we've gotten better about video game adaptations. I enjoyed the Tomb Raider film. I don't think it was a great film by any stretch of the imagination, but I had fun with that, right? It wasn't a travesty like so many video game movies have been before. In a similar vein, I enjoyed the Monster Hunter movie. You're allowed to hate me. It's fine. I expected it to be god awful, and it was just fun. It was a stupid fun movie. I think this is the one that's going to nail it. I think when you talk about the cast with Pedro Pascal, right? The fact that they brought in Merle Dandridge, right, just to reprise her role as Marlene, which is fucking awesome. And then that Bella Ramsey, who I only know from Game of Thrones, I assume like most people, right? The fact that she's in as Ellie, like it seems like they've got a great cast. I love the fact that they have Craig Mazin. Of course, did Chernobyl. But on top of that, the fact that they have Neil working on it, right? That he is actually writing it there. He is actually an executive producer. It's not just he's going to a screening and then coming out of it and be like, oh, they did a pretty good job of it. Like to be on that level, to be on the ground floor of it. Like I think the fact that it's on HBO, like I think you just start putting all of this together and putting little check boxes next to it, especially. And you're an Last of Us stan. I, of course, love The Last of Us. I am an HBO original series stan. Fucking whenever they're like, we got something, I'm like, what do you got over here? I'm like, yeah, the mayor of Easttown. You got look at the cast list on this thing. You got Kate Winslet. I'm like, this is going to be a dynamite show. What happens? Dynamite show. I'm living for it every Sunday back in the day. Now it's gone. I'm so sad. Like, I assume that's what this is going to become, right? That you're going to have 10 fucking weeks where we are left every Sunday night hanging on what the fuck's going to happen next week, even though we know, right? Like just like when they put out the cast footage of it was Sarah, Tommy, and Pedro Pascal or whatever, all in the car. You're like, oh, this ain't ending well. They're all smiles right now. That's not gonna go well.
I'm like, I've been in that car so many times, and I've told the story before. It took me so many times to actually finish The Last of Us because I kept starting it and then I like stopped. So I'm like, let me restart it, and then like my file got lost, and then I'm like, time to I restarted that game. I played the first like 2-3 hours of that game at least 4+ times. So I'm like, oh yeah, we're back in the car again.
Yeah, just where I wanted it to be, right?
Yeah, it's home.
Yeah, I really can't wait to see this because I think it's going to be something special. And again, I'm just saying that based on the production staff, the audience, the actors, and then the network it's on. But that's a lot. That's a lot. But those are a lot. That's a lot better hand than I think most video game projects we've ever seen have been dealt. So I am excited. I am hopeful. I think they're going to be able to land it. But right now, do you want a question about Last of Us, the video game? Jana Garcia, Last of Us stan. This one comes from Mario, who wrote into patreon.com/kindoffunnygames and says, I've been catching up on the last few episodes of PS I Love You XOXO. And a few weeks ago, y'all were talking about what the Last of Us factions is going to look like. And I think I have the perfect idea. It all stems from Greg's idea for Fear the Walking Dead. For Fear the Walking Dead, I can say it right. Where each season is a fresh start in a new location with new people. Imagine The Last of Us factions being a live service type thing with a battle pass/season pass system where each season brings 2 new characters, a weapon, and a map based off of a different location, and comes with a short hour or so long campaign mission to introduce the character and just have a crazy set piece. For example, picture Factions Moscow, where you're fighting infected bears in an abandoned snowy Russian town, or Factions Tokyo, where you're taking down a horde of where you're taking down a horde in the neon lit streets of Japan. Am I nuts to think of this as $1 million idea?
It got a little weird at the end for me.
I was gonna say, Jen, would you give $1 million to Mario to go make this?
Yeah, it got a little bit off the rails for me at the end, but I do like the idea of like a crazy set piece and an hour-long campaign to introduce. I think it also helps like create a fulcrum for people that are like, I just want a single player experience, and people who are like, I'm interested in multiplayer, can kind of satisfy both those parties. I will say Mario's description of Factions Moscow, like that sounds like Metro Exodus. Like you're like that is literally Metro, which I did like Metro Exodus. So maybe that's
for me when Days Gone, where I'm like literally fighting an infected bear.
Yeah,
right?
there's a lot of games with infected bear, like top 10 infected bears. They're like, what if we had a bear, but something's wrong with them? But I do like that. And I think one of my favorite moments in Last of Us 2, again, without giving anything away, are some of those like more marquee set pieces where like I got out of it like, whoa, they just did that and really blended the cinematics and the gameplay and made them both kind of seamless. But I'm also just like ready to have some kind of factions because I never did the multiplayer and everyone's like, it's so good. So I have to know what this world is like. Yeah,
I don't, Mario, it's a great idea. It doesn't sound to me like a Naughty Dog idea. That's the one thing, right? Where even if you're talking about, okay, yeah, every new season brings this giant set piece moment. I think even that's an order too tall for them to turn out at the Naughty Dog pace they want to be putting these things out and have them out. And I know that obviously they would already have a bunch banked because they're clearly working on something, but it just doesn't sound like where they would take it. It's a great idea for sure. I don't think it's like a bad idea for a game or what you want to do, but it just gets into the weeds in terms of a way that I don't think Last of Us factions would be. Although, again, Last of Us factions, who knows what that is or when you'll see it. I still could easily see them just one day quietly being like, hey, Naughty Dog blog post, we're not doing it anymore. We've tried and it just doesn't live up to our quality, and we want to move on to other single player stories. But I know all the hires and everything that's going on there. We'll have to wait and see. But again, also could be easily bundled in with Last of Us Part 2 Director's Cut or the Last of Us series Director's Cut, whatever you want to call it. Janet, what's number 2 for my PlayStation updates?
Cyberpunk is the top PS4 download of June 2021, with Ratchet & Clank being PS5s. And it is worth noting that it didn't come back to the store until, I think, June 21st, based on the Kotaku write-up of the same story. So,
you fucking believe it.
Does this shock you, Greg? Are you shocked? Are you floored? Are you appalled?
I'm appalled. No, it's not shocking because
you
look at like.
Are you inspired? Like what?
Man, calm down, Janet. I don't know what I am.
I can throw out different adjectives if you need me to.
Exactly. Thank you. When you look at the PlayStation 4 games, right? Like just the top 5, right? Number 1, Cyberpunk. Then, of course, Grand Theft Auto 5, NBA 2K21,
Blessing
Minecraft.
Downloading GTA 5 again.
Exactly. Black Ops Cold War, right? Yeah, I mean, it's like, okay, cool. There's not that much action happening on PlayStation 4 for the month in terms of like big blockbusters. So, of course, bringing Cyberpunk back, it makes sense, but it's that thing. It's surprising in the way that like I saw that headline today and I was like, oh, right. Yeah, that makes sense. But it's still like, man, what a road for this fucking game. And this is the thing we've talked about over and over again and it's a horse that's been beaten to death. Barrett came in and revived it, and then we killed it again and kept beating it. But what? How can CD Projekt Red, get back their reputation? And the fact that, the game's back and enough people bought it, right, to push it up the list. Granted, again, quieter month for what's going on PlayStation 4, but still it happened. In, as you point out, 9 days, 10 days, they were able to go ahead and chart it number 1 for it. It makes sense, but it's just such a weird one in the fact that Cyberpunk discourse fell off the face of the map. Where it came out and it wasn't about what your character did or what choice you made or where it was. It was the fact of, can you believe how broken this game is? And then we've never come back. I remember in what it would have after, into the new year here, where people were like, are you guys ever going to do a spoiler cast for Cyberpunk? And I was like, oh man, no, that ship sailed. Nobody's having that conversation. That's not people aren't hitting me up.
They need a director's cut.
Greg, we did a Persona 5 spoiler cast 2 years after Persona 5 came out. So
no. No. Well, never say never, sure. Yeah. But no, you make the right point though. We did that because so many people wanted that conversation. So many people were like, I just finished it. I'd love to talk about it, blah, blah, blah. Nobody, I've never fucking once. And now it'll be too late. So don't put your Twitter phones away, everybody. Don't try tweeting me right now about it. But I've never had somebody hit me up and be like, man, I just beat Cyberpunk, Greg. What choice did you make in your canonical? No, that's
tweet
not.
That at Greg and then hashtag it with hashtag PSI hate photo mode.
That would be a correct use of it, right? I think I'm gonna have way more interaction from people going wanting to talk about where the heart leads, the ending of that, than I ever had about Cyberpunk. And granted, am I mixing metaphors and stuff? Was I the Cyberpunk guy? No, but you all know I beat it, and it still wasn't the conversation anybody wanted to have about it.
Yeah.
So no, are you surprised? Are you blown away? Are you enraged, Janet Garcia? Are you ready to go roller skate in anger?
Despite what some people may perceive, I really don't get that mad at this kind of thing because I'm like, it's affected me. So I am surprised because there's again I'm thinking of that Kotaku write-up of that was just kind of contextualizing this story and this fact and why it's a little bit surprising, but then also why maybe it does make some sense given the slow month. But there's a label on the listing that says we don't recommend you play this on PS4, and people were like, download, I don't know, that is surprising to me.
I want to roll the dice.
Yeah, and sure, it is kind of a slower month, and but I am surprised, and I don't know. I feel like the discourse just keeps returning all the time. There's always every few weeks there's something Cyberpunk related, and I think it's gonna stay the way until they can finish their roadmap, which I think is a long road, and then they have it's just such an uphill battle with thinking about this game and trying to come to a place that is anything more interesting than, hey, remember that game everyone thought was going to be awesome, but it was kind of broken, but also it was actually technically good, but no one noticed because it was broken, but also if you got it on PC, it's so convoluted that that the actual content of the game, like you said, is so buried underneath all of this stuff. It's like, okay, this is a weird fun fact, but it is what it is. I don't know. I don't have anything crazy to make of it. But yeah, I am genuinely surprised because I don't know. I mean, I didn't think people would go for it, but they did.
Yeah. And I think you nail it. Of just like, what a weird journey this has been. And we're not even done with it, right? Like, we are still going to get this DLC eventually. You're still going to get PS5 Series X versions of this game eventually that people are going to talk about. And you wonder if that'll be the, not return to it, but like when it comes to PlayStation 5 natively, if that's when more people jump in and are able to just talk about the game rather than talk about all the fumbles along the way to get there. But we'll have to wait and see. God knows when that's happening. Janet, number 3 here on PlayStation updates I'll do, because I just said state of play recap and then a bunch of bullet points for what happened at state of play. But it's worth pointing out, since we were last live recording this show, there has been a state of play. If you missed it, I'm going to give you the quick hits and then just a little bit of Sifu stuff that I think is interesting. The run of show went like this. They started with Moss Book 2. Yes, Moss is coming back to PlayStation VR. They did not confirm platforms. I wanted for PlayStation VR 2, but when I asked the developers, they said they weren't ready to talk about it, but they are excited to use the DualShock 4 again. So it makes it sound like it'll be a PlayStation 4 version, but I imagine there'll be a PlayStation VR 2 version, right? Like, there has to be. Come on. Then Ilphonic surprised everybody with Arcadegeddon coming to early access that day. It's out right now. The 2022, we'll see the full release. Tribes of Midgar showed some new seasons and shit. Fist showed up, which is Forged in Shadow Torch. That's coming out September 7th, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5. Hunter's Arena came out. It's a fighting game and battle royale mashed together for PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. It is coming to PlayStation Plus on August 3rd. Sifu got delayed. They showed a great, fucking amazing trailer for it as usual, because that game looks so dope as you brawl through it. But it's coming out early 2022 to PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4. They had put up a tweet about it that read like this: "We were hoping to release Sifu before the end of 2021, but this won't be possible without compromising quality and having the team crunch for months, neither of which is acceptable. Even if it's for the very best, we're still very sorry for the delay. Thank you for your patience." They added a bit more, or no, that's actually a different thing about how cool Sifu was, but we've talked about Sifu. You should know Sifu's cool. Then Jet the Far Shore finally got some stuff. This had been in Edge magazine last month over in Europe. However, now we actually got to see it in motion with the trailer. We're going to play as May. It's going to be exploration and discovery. It's not focused on combat or resource extraction, which gets me very excited for what they called a chill exploratory adventure. Still calling 2021 PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4. We had 2 hits from Sega, one being Demon Slayer coming PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 October 15th, and then Lost Judgment coming September 24th, 2021. Then today there was news that because of the actors in Lost Judgment might not have to end as a series because the actors in Japan and their representation don't want it coming to PC, which is, God, do I respect them? God, do I love it. You know what I mean? That's how I think it should be, Barrett. Kill your franchise rather than support PC. That's what it's all about.
Wait, that's the I only like quick scrolled through that news on Twitter, and I thought it was like creative differences between like talent and like what was going on, but that's what it is. They don't want it on PC.
Janet, take it away.
Yeah, there's actually not direct confirmation on why they don't want it on PC, but the speculation that, was written about a little bit on Fanbyte, I want to say Kenneth Shepard did the write-up, but now I don't remember, was talking about, it might be because of modding, since it's like a real actor depicted in the game, like not wanting, weird creepo mods to like have like that person's likeness in whatever weird, I want to sleep with Keanu Reeves type situation.
Was the writer. Just to confirm.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. I thought so. Thank you. But yeah, that's the speculation that like that's the reason that they wouldn't want it on PC. And Sega's basically like, well, I don't know if I can have it on PC. I don't know if it's going to be financially viable like in the long term. And it's just kind of like a little bit of a standoff. So we'll find out, if that can end up working. I mean, there's certainly a number of potential solutions, but I don't know how easy those are to explore. Like, could you shift out the face of the character? Like, maybe you can't. Maybe it's in the contract to not. Like, I don't really know. So we'll have to see if they can come to an agreement that satisfies all parties. But that's a speculation for why they wouldn't want it on PC.
Gotcha.
Or they just say PC, like Greg.
I'm just saying PC is pretty cool, Greg. You know, I had to update my drivers earlier today for something, and it was so satisfying updating those drivers and then playing a video game at like 1440p with like very beautiful assets on this 1440p monitor.
Yeah, but you
playing like Dishonored
like,
2
2 or 3 hours to play
like,
that PC
looking like
game,
it just
and how
came
much
out
did you
this
actually
year.
get to play because you had to, the first hour had to be, what do I need to do? Why isn't this working?
Yeah. And then it's so satisfying when it worked.
Lost Judgment coming September 24th, 2021 to your PlayStation 5. Don't worry about it. Then the Death Stranding Director's Cut, which you've already talked about, again, September 24th. And then they showed more Deathloop for September 14th, which I did not need, Janet, and I tried not to pay too much attention to because I'm in for Deathloop. I just don't need to see any more Deathloop.
I felt the same way, but then I saw it and I was like, I kind of am glad that I got to see this because I felt like it was the best show in a Deathloop. Like it had a lot more like concrete of what you can expect from like the gameplay loop, no pun intended, and it had like a little bit of the writing, which I think was really well done. Like I'm excited for it, and I was just surprised after seeing so much of Deathloop because I've been checking out like literally everything that comes out with this game, as I'm sure you inadvertently have been to a degree as well. I didn't think there was anything else they could show me that would get me excited, but somehow they did, which makes me even more excited for it. So I cannot wait.
From what we saw from that state of play, it made me very interested. Like we got to preview it like a month and a half ago or something like this. Greg, I forget when that happened, but we did it for Gamescast, right? And it was just one of those things that like what they showed at the state of play was like a very shortened version of what Blessing Tim and I got to see, and Paris I think was at that event as well. And it was just like one of those things of like, why were those so far away from each other? Like this preview event that we got to see where it's like a more expanded version of what they just showed last week. It was just like one of those like weird decisions where it's like, why is this the cycle? And like I think that's why you and I are at the same point, Greg, where it's like we've seen enough, where it's like we just got preview like a month ago and it was like an expanded version of what they showed, and it's just like, all right, cool. When can I play it? September. Fucking all right, I'll just replay Dishonored 2.
That's the marketing strategy so much, right? Where you get it to press, but then since with different territories and different things, you give more leniency, more time with it. And then all of a sudden, then you show it to the public later on after they've all written about it, talked about it, and done the thing. So it's more than it's a fine line to walk with a new IP of overexposure and then also trying to tell people to go buy this game, because obviously people need to be told to go buy this game. Otherwise they don't do it and the game doesn't do it and then they stop making games. But that's not really a problem because I don't think Bethesda is going to make another PlayStation game anytime soon or in, Bethesda Studios, obviously, Xbox Studios, not everything's done there. But yeah, that was State of Play. Janet, what did you think of State of Play?
I thought it was pretty good. I think like if I have to do the classic grade rating, I'd give it a B because it wasn't like incredibly mind-blowing, but also, we kind of knew what it was going in. And what I liked about it was, I knew it as, okay, Deathloop's headlining and we got some indies, but there were some, I'd say my biggest genuine surprises were the Death Stranding Director's Cut, because I just didn't think they'd put that here, which also makes me wonder, is there going to be anything big down the pipeline if they've already kind of talked about this? But they could always talk about it again. So, that did kind of make me curious about that. And then starting off with Moss, like that was so shocking to me because in the PlayStation blog, they were like, we're not going to talk about PSVR 2. And they still didn't, right? But I was just really surprised to see anything VR related at all. And I think the fact that there's Moss Book 2, it tells me that they're not only aware of what franchises really hit and what people loved on PSVR 1, but that they're going to support it, even though we don't know, right, if it's going to be on VR 2 or what. But it's like, okay, they're paying attention and bringing it back. I feel like it would have to be, but I don't know. I mean, life's wild, so I could totally see it for some reason not making sense and not being on there, but I hope not.
The original Moss, you remember, got ported everywhere. So even if it is that this comes out before PlayStation VR 2, I bet you probably get Moss 1 and 2 in a bundle for PlayStation VR 2.
It'll
be Moss Director's Cut.
Yeah. We're all on that same level.
We all locked our asses into that. Sorry, it took me a second. Backed up into it awkwardly, but we all got there when we needed to be.
What about you? Where were you at on this?
On State of Play?
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoyed it. I enjoy finding out about games. I was surprised to see so many people saying they were disappointed by it. Like, I understand that we're coming off of E3, so people wanted them to swing back, but we do live in 2021 now where people straight up tell you what is going on in their game, right? Or with their presentations, where it's like, guess what? This is what we're talking about. God of War, Horizon, and VR won't be there. Like, or new PlayStation VR won't be there, or whatever it was. Like, that's how it's got to be to then have you not get hyped. But then at the same time, when you watch it, I feel like it's unfair to be like, well, this was a letdown. It's like, well, you knew you knew what it was going to be, right? At least we got stuff other than Deathloop, right? Where there were, for me, you know, so many of you, but me in particular, like opening with Moss, fuck yeah. Let's go. That's awesome. The fact that Arcadegeddon, right, was a early access drop that day, that you got the shadow drop there that day, I thought was cool. I haven't had time to play it, but before he was bit in the eyes by a snake, Blessing did, and he tweeted the following thing. Played some Arcadegeddon tonight, and it rocks. It definitely feels early access, but boil it down, and then he has bullet points, the co-op roguelike setup of Risk of Rain 2, the fun casual aesthetic of Fortnite, the wacky action of Ratchet and Clank. And then he has the soundtrack is also bumping. Also, there's a lot of cool ideas in here. Halfway through levels, there's an opportunity to do Fall Guys like PvP minigame to score rare loot. Plenty of things for it to work out during early access. Onboarding tutorial is a slog. Combat and UI could tighten up in places. Seems like they're still working on cosmetics. Not much there right now. Story stuff isn't engaging. But overall, a really fun time with friends. So, like, I understand that that's not Factions. That's not some AAA out of the blue, bam, here you go. But, like, the fact that they're doing it is cool. In the same breath of us sitting around being like, man, PlayStation doesn't support indies, for them to give Sifu a big thing there, right? For them to be, and I'm talking a little bit out of my ass. I don't know if Hunter's Arena is an indie game. Smaller games like Hunter's Arena, right? So, you know, Tribes of Midgar is from Gearbox, or being published by Gearbox, but still a smaller game. Like, to put it out there, and Jet the Far Shore for sure, an indie game, to put those out there on a big stage like that is cool and good. And, you know, Jet the Far Shore I thought looked great, and it sounds like what I actually wanted, you know, No Man's Sky to be without all the base building stuff. Like, I liked the state of play, but I also didn't come in expecting this to be PlayStation's answer to everything that happened at E3.
Yeah, for sure.
Next one I'll read too, I guess, because this is another one I just tossed on there. Number 4 on your PlayStation updates that you need, the PlayStation news you need to know about, is that somebody is making a samurai show in Dreams. The people making this is Cyber Sheep Film. Barrett, I tossed it over there for you to throw it up. There's going to be 15 episodes in total. There's a Kickstart incoming, but right now episode 1 is up. It is 22 minutes. It is basically a samurai anime, and Janet is fucking awesome. Did you get to look at any of this?
Yeah, I did. And I'm like constantly, you know, I know this, we speak highly of Dreams all the time, and, you know, Blessing on the Blessing Show had his like list of games that you should play, and that episode was in Dreams, which was super wild and a little horrifying, admittedly, to have on my monitor pulled up. But yeah, I'm constantly impressed by the things people can do in Dreams, and I just love seeing people's creativity run wild, and I think this is really cool. And I think one thing I really enjoyed checking out in Dreams is when there are those games that'll have like, oh, by this studio, or they'll have their Twitter handle or something. Yeah. And I always end up looking those up and seeing, you know, what those people are about. Yeah, I just vibe with people working and doing cool creative projects. And this seems like one of them. And I think it's a really interesting use of the platform.
Yeah, I can't recommend enough, ladies and gentlemen. Again, Cyber Sheep Film on Twitter. You can go there. You can get the links. You can go watch the first episode. Even if you want to mouse around, Barrett, like, when I heard about this today, you know, kind of funny best friend and Dreams creator had actually emailed me to be like, hey, if you didn't know this is happening, this is happening. And I came in expecting it to look like Dreams. And I think if you watch or play a lot of Dreams, you see obviously influences that here and there. But the fact that like the voice acting or the lip syncing is so good. The fact that they are actually laying it out and directing and showing cinematography that I think is on par with what they're emulating here. I was super blown away by how good this looks. And I think this is one of those things that's always been the promise of Dreams, that you can use it for whatever you want it to be. It doesn't need to just be games. It doesn't, you know, just need to be platformers. And when we saw people start making like models and backgrounds, and to see it all come together here through a different creative team that is really coming together and make something special here, I wanted to put it out there. Like, this is a huge moment for this game, even though it might not seem like it right now. And I'm stoked to see what happens from here.
I'll put
Dreams is the best deal in gaming.
I'm sorry,
because there's so many games within Dreams. Dreams is the best deal in gaming. But like, honestly, like I know that
that's what you want to do. That's where we're going.
Yeah.
Janet, I'm crazy today. I'll double down with you. You want to double down? Dreams is the best deal in gaming, ladies and gentlemen.
Boot it up and tell me it isn't. You can't because I've already blocked you. No, I'm just kidding. But honestly, I've had so much fun in Dreams, and like I finally convinced my brother to do the campaign, and he enjoyed it. And then it has local like co-ops, so sometimes we'll just go and like look for co-op games to play together, and like it's just a fun time, like dream surfing and checking out things. Like at one point I wish I remember the level names, we could search it. I think it was called like the PlayStation Park, and it had like these different areas from different PlayStation IPs, and you could go into a portal and you were in like the Spyro world, and I'm like, okay, I'm just hanging out as Spyro. Like this is cool. Like there's just a lot of creativity and intrigue and dope stuff going on in there. And yeah, I hope to see it, supported and doing well over the years.
And then your final PlayStation update for things for you to keep your eyes on this week in the world of PlayStation is that the Abandoned app is inching closer. Blue Box Game Studios put up the following tweet. We're excited to announce that the Abandoned Trailers app will be available to preload free of charge for all PS5 users on July 29th, with the introduction available on August 10th, followed by the first trailer later in August.
I
So
can't
there you
wait.
go, ladies and gentlemen. The game that is not Kojima in any way, shape, or form continues to have the weirdest rollout of stuff possible. As we get, yes, they have an app rather than just publish the trailers. We have
Yeah. And I remember, so we had talked about this on Games Daily, and Nanobiologist, who's a patron supporter, pointed out that it's because they're trying to do it where it's integrated with the hardware and you get like the best fidelity. But I've never been, and I know some people are that person who's like, I waited for the 4K super high res Horizon trailer to drop so I could enjoy the beauty on my I ain't doing all that. Like, I'm gonna pull that up on my phone like when I'm cooking dinner. Like that's just my reality. And I do get people wanting to showcase their game in the best light, but I do think I doubt that I'm hesitant to believe that the convolutedness of this process is worth the beauty that it will have. And now I'm just thinking, well, I want it to look real good now because there's all these steps. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say about this. I really hope that they can get away from the marketing wormhole of rumors and conspiracy theories that they created for themselves and just have like a normal time.
Sure, that'd be nice. Yeah, but who knows what they're, God, they just make it weirder and weirder. But get the trailers out there, show us what the game is, make sure it isn't a Kojima game, we'll be happy. Ladies and gentlemen, I have breaking news. Joining us from the Animal Resource Center that is currently trying to pump all the venom out of his eyes is the one, the only Blessing Adeoye Jr.
Oh, my eyes hurt so much. Did they bite one of my eyes or both my eyes?
The snake ball. One
both
snake bit both of your
see.
eyes.
Yeah, I can't
and
see
it's gonna
that,
keep you
that
out
darn
both Mondays.
snake. That darn snake. I came through. I don't know if you guys have talked about Arcadegeddon yet, but I got some slacks from Greg asking if I can give my opinion, and I figured I should just jump in here and just give him.
I read your tweet thread. Yeah, but you are free to expand on it.
Is there anything you guys want to know? Because like basically, my biggest question when I jumped into it late last week was like, what the fuck is this game? Because we saw it. We saw
if
it.
You have an answer. That would be really good.
I do, because we saw it at the State of Play, and I feel like they didn't do a good job of selling it, because I think half of us were like, oh, it's PvE multiplayer, and then like the other half was like, oh, it's PvP, it's like Fortnite or some shit. Basically, it's like a Risk of Rain 2, where it's a co-op roguelite horde-based third-person shooter where you're going through these procedurally generated rooms and taking out hordes of enemies and doing objectives to then get to the next level or the next stage. And the whole thing with it is that it has like an arcade aesthetic. It reminds me a lot of how Knockout City looks, where it's like the casual Fortnite look of it, but then it's sprinkled in like a lot of like the arcade stylings of just like pure video game action, like pixelated style, like just a bunch of over the top shit. And it's really fun. I've had a really good time with it. I've played about like 4 to 5 different runs with both Rihanna and then my friend Emmett, who people probably know from the community. Emmett Watkins Jr. Shout out.
He was already on this episode.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, not like in person, but he wrote in.
Okay. Oh, cool. But yeah, we had a pretty good time with it. It has a really cool soundtrack, and yeah, like has an interesting loot-based system where it's the traditional thing of like, white, green, blue, purple, legendary. You're finding different guns. Sure. To then get more powerful. Guns every now and then can get super wacky. There's the one gun that I tweeted about that blows up enemies, literally like inflates them. There are other guns that are like these disc guns that'll shoot out discs that'll slice up enemies. Reminds me a little bit of Ratchet and Clank in that regard, to how wacky and different the enemies can get. Really, really fun game. I think it has a long way to go in terms of early access and stuff to add. Like it reminds me a bit of Hades in the way that that game took in so much feedback that by the time they released the final thing, it was like, oh shit, this game's a masterpiece. I think this game, for where it's at right now, is in a pretty fun place, but they gotta do quite a bit to get it to where it needs to be, because like, combat can tighten up in quite a few places. Menu UI, there's quite a few things we're playing, and I was like, man, it's almost there, but it could use a lot more. The cosmetic stuff, I assume that even they know that the cosmetic stuff isn't there yet, because it feels like it's lacking so much in terms of when you jump in, you get 2 body types that you can choose from. You get 2 different faces you can choose from. It feels like there's not much there. And then even the stuff I've unlocked so far, I'm like, man, I wish there was a lot more here. And the story stuff just isn't as interesting as I want it to be. Like that they get you in there. The I mentioned in my tweet that the tutorial is kind of a slog. And you go in there, it's a lot of text, it's a lot of reading. The characters speak Simlish, basically, where it's just pure gibberish, but then you like read the text.
Can you give us an impression of that right now?
Oh God, I wish I could.
Despite your injury?
No, it's just that my eyes are affecting the way I
not his vocal cord. He's fine.
No, it's just the pain in my eyes is making it difficult for me to do impressions that aren't my Obama impression.
Sure.
Yeah.
Can we get that instead?
Malia, this country deserves war.
Can we get that? But
Jesus.
what?
Obama, why are you telling Malia this?
Can we get that? But you explaining what this game is?
Malia, Arcadegeddon.
10 out of 10. 10 out of 10.
Thank you. I can't do it. Okay,
I'll giggle.
Look, don't come in here if you're not ready to do the impression.
Fair. But yeah, like, you get in there, it's a lot of text, it's a lot of like the tutorials doing things like, hey, turn your right analog stick to look around, use your left analog stick to move. And by the time you actually get to the point where you can match make in multiplayer, I feel like you're playing 30 minutes of this game. For a game like this, it's kind of unacceptable. It's kind of the thing where it's like, people know how to play a third-person shooter, people know how to play a multiplayer game. You don't need a tutorial. People's friends will teach them. It's like Call of Duty. People will learn or Fortnite. People will learn as they go. And so they got to streamline that some way, because it was pretty ridiculous by the time when I tell my friends, hey, you should jump into this because it's fun, I have to preface it by saying, by the way, you have all this tutorial shit to do, and that is not the kind of thing you want to tell people when they're jumping into this game.
Pack a lunch. You're eventually going to get to the fun stuff, but you got to do this first.
Exactly. But overall, I was fairly surprised with it, enjoyed it. I'm probably going to play a little bit more. I want it to keep hooking me, because I want this game to be dope, because I think there's a lot of dope ideas there. But again, it's very early access, and so I might just be, on the journey with this one until it comes out next year.
Cool. Well, thank you. Go recuperate from your snake bites.
Sweet. Yeah, I will. I'll put my blindfold back on and do my Daredevil, feeling where everything
just
is in my room.
Just hit the hang up button. Just hang up. Hang up.
Feel.
Wait, hold on. I think we need this is important information.
I need to hear my city, Greg.
He sees a world on fire.
Let me listen to my city. Let me listen to my block. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
What a nice young man. You know what I mean?
That was a lot. That was a lot. That was a little bit a lot.
I think the painkillers are working. Janet, let's talk about PlayStation picks. Of course, this is where we highlight a few cool looking games coming to the PSN this week. Usually Blessing calls out the big hitters in terms of like, hey man, look at this AAA game coming out. Not many of those. That's not really what this week is about.
You can play Cyberpunk on PS4 though, if you want to do that. Join that train.
Sure. Yeah, if that's what you're looking for, sure. Instead, I went and saw 3 games that I thought were interesting to call out here. The first is Lost at Sea. It's coming to PlayStation 5 on Thursday, July 15th. Set on a beautiful island where every biome represents a phase of life, you will explore your surroundings and solve riddles to reclaim your memories. While the fear of death is hunting you, trying to take you to the other side before you have tasted life. In the end, this is a game about the things you want to remember, the things you wish for, and life as a whole. What are the most important moments in life to you, Janet Garcia?
We're going to find out when we eventually play this game. I actually am interested in this one. Again, I like story stuff, and I vibe with the aesthetic, which granted, I feel like this aesthetic has definitely been done before, but I'm ready for more of it, like the same way people vibe with, pixel art, or we all have our, different things that draw us in. Yeah, this one seems interesting.
Yeah, really nice art style as we watch it here as it goes through and does all of its stuff here. Getting crazy, a lot of lights, lots of things going on here, right? Yeah, yeah, first person, right? Yeah. Love, friendship, family, and career and freedom. No matter what we are or where we come from, these are the things that make life worth living to all of us. And we are all afraid that something will take these things away from us before we've experienced every single bit of it. But death is inevitable. To be afraid doesn't need to make sense. The more we experience, the more we know and remember, the more the fear of death loses its powers.
Oh,
Jeez
I can't
Louise.
wait.
Yeah, get in there. All right, cool. Get out there.
I'm gonna overcome that fear of death. I've
Yeah,
been
this
meaning
is
to get
what'll
out
do
of
it.
that. I've been meaning to face my fears of death for
When
some
you're on your
time.
deathbed, your children are like, Grandma Garcia, is there anything you need to know? And you're like, I haven't feared death since Lost at Sea.
Yeah,
My life changed July 15th, 2021.
as it should.
The other game I have here is Little Witch Academia, VR broom racing. Take to the skies on a magical broom in this VR broom racing game based on the Little Witch Academia anime. This is coming out Thursday, July 15th as well. Barrett's got it running over there. It's following up on that, the thing that made Superman 64 such a hit, flying through rings. But this time you're on a broom.
And this time, you're gonna throw up. Have fun.
This time it's in your hands in VR. God bless you.
If you're like
good luck.
me and your body gets all like really hot because your brain is like, I should be experiencing like wind like blowing back on me while floating through the air, but it doesn't. Don't play this game probably.
Probably don't play this game. This is the one.
Have you tried just turning a fan on and just like simulating experience? Does that help?
I haven't. Granted, I haven't played any game like that where I haven't done PSVR since I worked at IGN. So like, yeah, I forget the first day, my first day at IGN, I had to play rigs for gameplay capture for review, and yeah, that was getting thrown in there and getting really hot and not feeling great throughout that experience was very interesting. And I have not really tried a game where I have to like sit down and like play because my main VR option has been since last year was the Quest, and so where that I can actually like move around and actually like kind of more of like a feel like my body is actually moving with the camera, so it doesn't get like super upset with me. So
There's definitely slightly less risk of injury or breaking something in your apartment when the wires are kind of cut. But yeah, I guess that brings us to Where the Heart Leads, which is where we started, which comes out Tuesday, July 13th. This is the pitch. Take the journey of a lifetime in Where the Heart Leads, a surreal narrative adventure from the award-nominated indie developer Armature Studio. One fateful stormy night, husband and father Whit Anderson descends down a sinkhole to save the family dog. Tumbling into darkness, Whit emerges in a realm beyond his imagining, where moments from his past, present, and future manifest like dreams, bearing witness to the story of his life. Whit gains the power to change it. So again, that comes out what's today? Today's Monday. Jeez, tomorrow. So you guys can play and let us know what endings you get. Definitely hit me up and Greg up about where you land on this.
And of course, remember in PS I Love You XOXO, the director's cut, formerly known as the post show. We are doing, of course, a spoiler cast here to get into a little bit of, I want to know how Janet's game ended. I'm sure she wants to know how mine ended. So we'll get in there. So heads up for you if you want to do that. It's over there, patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. But for sure, tweet us. If you have my number, you don't need to text me about it. But if you do have my number, go ahead. Text me about it. I don't mind. Janet, this is where we usually do What You've Been Playing. But as I said, I kicked it off and I did Where the Heart Leads from the very, very top of the show. Beyond that, what else have you been playing this week?
I really just kind of in that transitional where I just
Janet, you're crashing.
You're
crashing.
Janet,
we're losing you.
Janet. Yeah. Maybe
what should I do?
Restart
hang up
Discord.
and come back, see if that fixes it. Hang up, maybe close Discord, come back.
Yeah. What's up, Greg?
I saw her getting framey and I was like, wait, is that?
Well, she
me?
froze for a second and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
And then you started getting framey too on my end, and I was like, "Oh gosh!" But you still sound good,
sound great.
Greg. You said to text you if we have your number about Where the Heart Leads. So I'm going to text you right now. Hey, just wanted to text you about Where the Heart Leads. I don't think it's a Barrett game. Send text.
I'm waiting. There it is. I got it.
There you go.
I just want to text you about Where the Heart Leads. I don't think it's a bear game. A send text. I understand. Do you ever like narrative games? And I'm going to say send text. All right, I sent that. But now we can stop this bit. Do you ever like narrative games? Have you ever gotten into like a walking simulator narrative?
Hold on. I'll. Oh no, there's Janet.
That's fine. That works for now. That does it. That does what we need.
Let's see. I'm trying to think of like the last kind of like. I tried. What was it? What was the book club that you and I eventually bailed on?
Sounds like us. That sounds like us.
Yeah. Ooh, and Blessing loves it, and he had all the British people on to talk about it because all the British people love this game.
Disco Elysium.
Disco Elysium. I tried that out, and then I never got back to it after like my first hour of playing that. I fucked with Firewatch when Firewatch came out a few years back.
Did that not hit for you?
I liked it. They're just not Barrett games. They're not. They're not.
Janet's
like
trying to radio to us. What's that, Janet?
Yeah, what's up, Janet?
Yeah. Hi. I believe I'm gone indefinitely because computers are stupid. So
all right, cool. Don't worry about it. We'll keep going, and if you can rejoin us, great. And if you can't, you're fired, and we'll find somebody else to host while I'm out. No, I'm kidding. It's great. All right, let us know. So it never hit. So yeah, I'm sorry. Back to it.
Yeah. So narrative games like that like never really hit for me, which is interesting because I love video games because of the unique kind of platform that they have to
Storytelling
give interesting stories and stuff like that. But it's one of those things. I was streaming Dishonored 2 the other day, Greg, because of that Deathloop state of play. I was like,
of course,
itching to just play more arcane stuff, and I was replaying Dishonored 2 already. But then it turned into what was it? Oh, Janet's back. Look
Hi.
at that.
Hey, Janet.
So I'm playing nothing because I died.
Well, you didn't fear death though because of the other game we were talking about.
Yeah, shot at Lost at Sea.
Lost at Sea. Yeah, that told you not to fear anything.
Yeah. But to finish off the story really quick, I streamed the Clockwork Mansion because that's where I was in my playthrough of Dishonored 2, and that's just like a really cool level. And one Cameron Kennedy was in the chat, and we were talking about like reading like notes and like getting into lore of video games. And I saw a tweet. I saw a really good tweet about like someone telling themselves like, "Oh, I'm gonna read everything this time around in Dishonored 2," and then like halfway through the first note, and I'm good. And it's just like one of those things where you have to like stop and like read it feels like a weird pace of a video game to like stop and go. And I think that's where I kind of get at with like narrative like kind of walking around games where it's just like the pace for me momentum wise it doesn't feel like it's really going anywhere and stuff like that. So yeah,
they're definitely for me somebody who loves them. They're definitely a mood. You have to be in the mood for that kind of thing where like I remember I hate it when you're like, I remember that game, and then you can't. The Chinese Room or the Chinese Room, right? Everybody's gone to the Rapture. I remember loving that in preview and being so stoked to get it, and then when we got it, it just wasn't in the mood, and I've never finished it. I've started it multiple times, but I just fall off because it's what you're talking about, right? Where it is such a pacing thing. Where if you're not in that mood, like I was in the mood. Like, and we'll talk, I'm sure, in a little bit in spoiler cast about it at the end here for Where the Heart Leads, right? It is, they make such a big deal about it, like, oh, it's 600,000 words, it's big, it's as big as 6 novels or whatever. Like, it feels like an interactive novel. That's what I'm doing in this thing, and I was in the mood to read that. But like in the same way, when I started Disco Elysium and I was reading all that stuff, I was like, I am not in the mood to read this. Like that is not what I want to play right now.
And this is like kind of like how it goes for a lot of different genres. Even like I love Undertale, and like Imran was a couple months ago talking about Everhood and stuff like that, and Janet and everybody else has been talking about Chicory and stuff like that. Like those games, both of those games should be totally my fucking vibe. And then I tried both of them, and I just can't get the pull to go back to either of them. So it's just very much of like what we're currently in the mood for. I want to try Chicory again before the end of the year for like Game of the Year like discussion stuff, because I know you absolutely love it. Blessing was really into it and stuff like that. But for now, it's just I know it's not going to hit, and I don't want to force myself to like go through it and like at the cost of like maybe resenting it even more.
Totally. So, that'll ruin the experience if you try to force it and then you get in and then you try to come back weeks, months later, and you're like, I already did this first.
So once I get my adventure game fixed, like I'm just like I'm waiting for Death's Door. I'm waiting for like a lot of like very action heavy games. So like once I get my fix in that, like I'll definitely try to give Chicory at least another shot. Everhood might be done though.
Grandma Garcia, what else have you been playing outside of Chicory and Where the Heart Leads?
I'm really scared that's gonna catch on, and I know me saying that means that it also just will.
Yeah, the more you
yeah,
fight
I mean,
it, the more it'll stick. I lived and learned with Boss Baby.
Oh, okay, yeah, that does sound familiar.
The roller skating gaming granny, Janet Garcia.
I honestly dream about being, older, like at that grandma age, and being able to just still stream, because then suddenly everything will be like, wow, like you still have interest despite being an elderly woman, and it's like, should I be offended? No, I'm going to monetize this. Like that's my plan. So I'm excited for that revenue stream to open up. But until then, I'm still chipping away at Demon Souls. I had to skip my stream this past Saturday because I was working on getting my review out and everything for Where the Heart Leads. But I'm going to go back on that. I got that one weapon, that one really powerful weapon that's early on. It's like World 4 or whatever. I got that. The Tall Knight's there. I'm ready to fight the Tall Knight. I'm excited. And then I'm going to finally continue and finish Ratchet and Clank. And then I'm debating Scarlet Nexus because I did 4 hours of it a few weeks ago. And I vibed with it. I liked it. I was doing some of the side stuff. Like, I thought the combat was fun. A lot of people have been critical of that story as being sort of, I don't know, basic, I guess. And maybe it is. Like, I'm not, an anime person. But I'm like, I feel like it's a very serviceable story. Like, I'm interested in the dramas, the characters, and everything. So we'll see how that one pans out. But I would like to finish it. I just don't know how long that'll take because it's kind of a lengthy game.
All right. Excellent. Yeah, now that I got Where the Heart Leads behind me, and as we'll talk about here in probably just 2 seconds, I don't think I'm going to go back to it, but I do feel the pull to go back to it. But I
feel like you're going to go back to it. I think you're going to go back to it. Yeah, because you're so close. You're so close to the platinum, and I think you'll do it.
Yeah. But I don't know. Yeah, I kind of have that thing right now where I know a couple things are coming down the line this week for reviews. So it's like I don't have all the time in the world, but I do have free time. And so it's like, is this where I try to knock out Psychonauts? You know what I mean, Barrett? Is this where I try to do it to get ready for Psychonauts 2?
You're going to try? You're going to do it?
I haven't downloaded. It's all set. But then also I do want to try Final Fantasy 14 at some point and give that a real college try. Is that where you start this right now?
All right. You're going to do this whole, you're going to get all these kids' hopes up like you did with that Star Wars game where you guys played it for like 3 weeks and then you made a whole
Which is huge for us. You kidding me? You played it for 3 weeks. We played it for 9 to 12 hours. That's a lot for a PC MMO out of the blue one freaking Wednesday. I was like, let's start it.
All right. I just you're going to get these kids' hopes up that like you're going to be along for the ride for years to come.
There's no way.
Okay.
There's no way that's happening.
All right.
I said I would give it the college try. I would try.
I mean, here's the thing. Mike has already gotten on the Psychonauts board. I know he started it over the weekend to get ready for the sequel as well. That's coming out in a month at this point, I think, which is exciting. And he was asking me questions because there is like a very PS2 era part of that game where you have to like go and get a bunch of currency to buy one item to like essentially like get through the rest of the game. But it's pretty easy after like, if you know what to do, it takes like 30 minutes and it's not too bad. But yeah, I love the worlds that Tim Schafer and company create. And even though I was very late to Psychonauts and only had played it and finished it finally for the first time this year, like I totally fell in love with it. And I knew that I would if I'd just given it the time. So I think it's the best time to try out Psychonauts 1 to prepare for Psychonauts 2.
Yeah, how long to beat says 12.5 hours for the main story? That ain't nothing. I got that.
And I think I did it. I think I did my playthrough.
Like, again, it's someone who did that Alba game.
And that's 12 hours probably of like doing the campaign and then like doing like a good chunk of the collectibles. And I feel like I still did like a good amount of collectibles, but I feel like I was able to finish it in like 8 to 9 hours.
Okay. All right. We'll see what happens then.
Probably nothing.
But
like, you just don't play anything.
I come back next week. I'm like, I guess what I did. I played more Avengers. I just played the Red Room. I just played a lot of with Goldfarb for Avengers. That's going to be the main show. That's it. That's PS I Love You XOXO. We got a director's cut to go do where I get to talk about what happened in Where the Heart Leads with Janet and find out the spoilers. I'm sorry, Barrett. We're going to ruin it for you. You want to know what's going to happen to Wit? We're going to tell you what happens to Wit.
I mean, I don't know if you got this. I don't know if you got this text, Greg, but I did send you this that just says, "Hey, just wanted to text you about Where the Heart Leads. I don't think it's a Barrett game. Send text." So
you're right. You did say that.
That's how we filled the time while you were gone, Janet. By the way,
Thanks.
We narrated the text we sent
as
each
you
other.
should.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been PS I Love You XOXO. Remember, each and every Tuesday we come together to nerd out about all things PlayStation. If you like that and you're a fellow PlayStation nerd, you can head over to patreon.com/kindafunnygames to write in to be part of the show, to watch us record the show live, to get the show with no ads, and to get it with the post show we're about to do. That's now the PS I Love You XOXO Director's Cut. Of course, if you have no bucks to toss our way and you don't want to get it a day early, it's no big deal. You can go to youtube.com/kindafunnygames, roosterteeth.com, and podcast services around the globe each and every Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. Pacific to get a brand new episode with ads, no post show, and a bunch of sad frowny faces. But it's still a great show. We still have a lot of fun here. Janet, for the next week, while you recuperate and play other PlayStation things, while you get excited, you build up the energy to come back here and podcast with me, where can people keep up with you?
Across the internet at Game Onysys. That's Game ONYSUS. That's my Twitter, my Twitch, everything. And again, check out that review for Where the Heart Leads, spoiler free. And then when you have your spoilers, hit us up.
Exactly. We want to hear your spoilers on Twitter or see them, I guess. You can send me voice memos too. And then right now we want to talk about it on patreon.com/kindafunnygames on this post show /director's cut. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, it's been our pleasure to serve you.